Daphne, you need to understand, I just borrowed it. You and Elliot are doing so well. I thought it wouldn't matter. Mabel's voice was dismissive, leaving my heart pounding with disbelief. I gripped the phone tighter, my knuckles turning white. Borrowed? Mabel, you took $30,000 from our joint savings without asking. That's not borrowing, that's stealing. Don't be so dramatic, Mabel scoffed. It's family money. I'm sure Elliot wouldn't mind. It's not just Elliot's money, I snapped. It's our money. Mine and his. We worked hard for it. Oh, please, Mabel said, her tone dripping with disdain. As if designing pretty little trinkets is real work. I took a deep breath, trying to calm the rage building inside me. Mabel, I want that money back in our account by the end of the week. Or what? She challenged. You'll tell Elliot? Go ahead. He'll understand. He knows how much I've sacrificed for him. The line went dead. I stared at the phone, my hands shaking. My name is Daphne, and I just discovered my mother-in-law has been stealing from us. I paced the living room, my mind racing. How long had this been going on? What else had she taken? And how was I going to tell Elliot? The front door opened, and Elliot walked in, his suit jacket slung over his shoulder. Hey, honey, how was your day? I turned to face him, my stomach in knots. Elliot, we need to talk. It's about your mother. His face immediately clouded with concern. What's wrong? Is she okay? She's fine, I said, my voice tight. But our bank account isn't. She took $30,000 from our savings. Elliot's eyes widened. What? There must be some mistake. There's no mistake, I said, pulling out my phone to show him the transaction. I just got off the phone with her. She admitted it. Elliot's face paled as he looked at the screen. I can't believe this. Why would she do that? She said she was borrowing it, I said, unable to keep the bitterness from my voice. Because we're doing so well. Elliot ran a hand through his hair, looking lost. Maybe she just needs some help. We should talk to her, see what's going on. I stared at him in disbelief. Elliot, she stole from us. This isn't about helping her, it's about protecting ourselves. She's my mother, Daphne, Elliot said, his voice rising. I can't just turn my back on her. And I'm your wife, I shot back. Don't I matter too? Elliot's face softened. Of course you do. I need to talk to her. Figure out what's going on. I watched as he pulled out his phone, dialing Mabel's number. My heart sank as I realized this was going to be harder than I thought. Mom, Elliot said, his voice gentle. Can you come over? We need to talk. An hour later, Mabel swept into our living room, all designer clothes and expensive perfume. She kissed Elliot on the cheek before turning to me with a cold smile. Daphne, dear, I hear you've been making quite a fuss. I bit back a retort, letting Elliot take the lead. He sat down across from Mabel, his face serious. Mom, we need to talk about the money you took from our account. Mabel waved a hand dismissively.
Oh, that.
I told Daphne it's just a loan. I'll pay it back. When? I asked, unable to stay silent. And why didn't you ask us first? Mabel's eyes narrowed. I didn't think I needed permission to help myself to family money. It's not family money, I said, my voice rising. It's mine and Elliot's. We earned it. Daphne, Elliot said, his tone warning. He turned back to Mabel. Mom, we're happy to help if you need it, but you can't just take money without asking. We have bills to pay, a business to run. Mabel's lower lip trembled. I thought you'd understand, Elliot. After everything I've done for you. I watched in disbelief as Elliot's resolve visibly weakened. He reached out, taking Mabel's hand. Of course I understand, but we need to set some boundaries. Can you pay the money back? Mabel sniffed, dabbing at her eyes with a monogrammed handkerchief. I'm not sure. Things have been so difficult lately. I couldn't take it anymore. Difficult? Mabel, you're wearing a $5,000 handbag. You just got back from a cruise. How is that difficult? Mabel's face hardened. I don't think that's any of your business, Daphne. It became my business when you stole from us, I snapped. Daphne, please, Elliot said, his voice strained. He turned back to Mabel. Mom, we need that money back.
Can you sell something?
Maybe cut back on expenses for a while. Mabel's eyes filled with tears. You'd ask your own mother to sell her things? To live like a pauper? I watched in growing frustration as Elliot faltered, caught between his mother's manipulation and his duty to our marriage. It was clear this was just the beginning of a much bigger problem. As Mabel continued to play the victim and Elliot struggled to find a middle ground, I made a silent vow. I would protect what we'd built, no matter the cost. If Mabel wanted a fight, she'd get one. And I intended to win. I stared at the computer screen, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. The design for our new collection was almost complete, but something felt off. I couldn't shake the nagging feeling that had been haunting me since Mabel's loan incident. Hey, Daph. Elliot called from the doorway of our home office. How's it coming along? I forced a smile. Almost there. Just tweaking a few details. Elliot walked over, resting his hands on my shoulders. It looks amazing. You've really outdone yourself this time. His praise should have filled me with pride, but instead, I felt a twinge of resentment. Ever since Elliot had left his corporate job to join my jewelry business, the lines between our personal and professional lives had blurred. Thanks, I said, trying to keep the tension out of my voice. How are the financials looking? Elliot's hand stiffened on my shoulders. About that, I've been thinking, maybe we should consider giving my mom a small stipend. To help her out. I swiveled in my chair to face him. Elliot, are you serious? After what she did. He ran a hand through his hair, a nervous habit I'd come to recognize. I know. But she's still my mother. And she did raise me on her own. She raised you on your father's life insurance, I reminded him gently. And now she's trying to live off our hard work. Elliot's face clouded. That's not fair, Daphne. She's made mistakes, but… Mistakes? I interrupted, my voice rising. She stole from us, Elliot. And now you want to reward her for it. He stepped back, his expression hardening. I'm not rewarding her. I'm trying to help her. I stood up, needing to feel on equal footing. And what about helping us? Our business? Our future? That's what I'm doing, Elliot insisted. If we help her now, maybe she'll stop asking for more later. I laughed bitterly. You really believe that? Elliot, giving her money is like feeding a stray cat. She'll just keep coming back for more. His eyes flashed with anger. Don't talk about my mother like that. We stood there, the tension crackling between us. This wasn't just about Mabel anymore. It was about us, our partnership, our marriage. I need some air, I said finally, grabbing my jacket. I'm going for a walk. I didn't wait for his response, just headed out the door and into the cool evening air. My feet carried me to the nearby park, where I found a bench and sat down heavily. How had we gotten here? When Elliot first joined the business, it had seemed like a dream come true. My creative vision, his business acumen, we were unstoppable. But now, with Mabel's constant interference and Elliot's divided loyalties, everything felt off balance. My phone buzzed. A text from Clara. Hey girl, haven't heard from you in a while. Everything okay? I hesitated, then typed back. Not really. Can we meet for coffee tomorrow? Her response was immediate. Absolutely. 10 a.m. at our usual spot. See you there, I replied, feeling a small sense of relief. At least I had someone to talk to who wasn't caught in this mess. As I walked home, my mind raced with possibilities. We needed to set clear boundaries, not just with Mabel, but between our personal and professional lives. And I needed to take control of our finances before things spiraled further. Elliot was in the living room when I returned, his laptop open on the coffee table. He looked up as I entered, his expression guarded. Hey, I replied, shrugging off my jacket. We need to talk. He nodded, closing his laptop. I know. I'm sorry about earlier. I shouldn't have sprung that on you like that. I sat down next to him, taking a deep breath. Elliot, I love you. And I love our business. But we can't keep going like this. What do you mean? He asked, his brow furrowing. I mean, we need clear boundaries, I explained. Between work and home. Between us and your mother. We need to protect what we've built. Elliot was quiet for a moment, then nodded slowly. You're right. I know you're right. It's hard, balancing everything. I took his hand, squeezing it gently. I know, but we're in this together, right? Partners in everything. He smiled, some of the tension leaving his face. Always. Good, I said, feeling more resolved than I had in weeks. Because I have some ideas about how we can move forward, starting with separate accounts for personal and business expenses. Elliot's eyebrows rose. You really think that's necessary? I do, I said firmly. We need to be able to track everything, especially with the business growing. And it'll make it easier to set limits on outside expenses. He caught my meaning, nodding slowly. Okay, let's do it. What else? As we talked into the night, hashing out plans and setting new ground rules, I felt a glimmer of hope. We could get through this as long as we stood united. But as I drifted off to sleep that night, a small voice in the back of my mind whispered a warning. This was just the beginning. Mabel wouldn't give up so easily, and our resolve would be tested again and again. I was ready for the fight. The question was, would Elliot stand with me when it really counted? The doorbell rang, its chime echoing through our house like a warning. I glanced at Elliot, who was engrossed in his laptop, before heading to answer myself. I opened the door to find Mabel standing there, decked out in a designer outfit that probably cost more than our monthly mortgage payment. Daphne, darling, she cooed, air-kissing my cheeks. I hope I'm not interrupting anything important. Actually, we're quite busy. I started, but Mabel had already brushed past me into the house. Elliot, sweetheart, she called out. Your mother needs a favor. I followed her into the living room, my stomach knotting with dread. Elliot looked up from his work, his expression a mix of surprise and wariness. Mom, what are you doing here? Mabel perched on the edge of our sofa, her perfectly manicured hands clasped in her lap. Well, you see, there's this wonderful charity gala coming up next month. All the most influential people in the city will be there. I simply must attend. But what, Mom? Elliot asked, his voice tight. Well, I need a new dress, of course. And shoes. And perhaps a little something from your lovely jewelry line, Daphne dear. It would be such marvelous publicity for you both. I felt my blood pressure rising. Mabel, we've talked about this. We can't keep... Oh, don't be so stingy, Mabel interrupted, waving a dismissive hand. It's not as if you can't afford it. And really, it's an investment in your future. Think of the connections I could make for you at this gala. Elliot shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Mom, we've set up some new financial boundaries. We can't just... Boundaries? Mabel's voice took on a shrill edge. Is that what she's calling it? She turned to me, her eyes narrowing. I suppose you think you're very clever, turning my own son against me. That's not what this is about, I said, fighting to keep my voice level. We're trying to run a business here, Mabel. We can't keep dipping into our funds for personal expenses. Mabel's lip curled in disdain. Personal expenses? I'm talking about networking, about building your brand. But I suppose you wouldn't understand that, would you? You're just a small-time designer who got lucky. Mom, Elliot's voice was sharp. That's enough. Daphne has worked incredibly hard to build this business. And you've worked hard too, darling, Mabel said, her tone softening as she turned to Elliot. You both deserve to enjoy the fruits of your labor. What's the point of all this success if you can't indulge a little? I watched as Elliot's resolve wavered. Maybe we could spare a little for the dress, he said hesitantly. Elliot, no, I said firmly. We agreed on this. We can't keep enabling her. Mabel's face darkened. Enabling? Is that what you think this is? I'm not some addict, Daphne. I'm family. But I suppose you wouldn't understand that concept, would you? Always so cold, so calculating. That's rich coming from you, I snapped, my patience finally breaking. You're the one who's been calculating how to squeeze every last penny out of us. How dare you? Mabel gasped, clutching her pearls dramatically. Elliot, are you going to let her speak to me like this? Elliot looked between us, his face a mask of anguish. I think you should go, Mom. We can talk about this another time. Mabel stood, drawing herself up to her full height. I see. Well, I hope you're happy, Daphne. You've finally gotten what you wanted. My own son, turning his back on me. As she stormed out, slamming the door behind her, I turned to Elliot. I'm sorry, but we had to stand firm. He nodded, looking drained. I know. It's hard. I sat beside him, taking his hand. I understand, but we're doing the right thing. Later that evening, as I was checking our business email, I saw a message from Elliot's cousin, Sarah. Curious, I opened it. Daphne, I hope this email finds you well. I wanted to reach out because I've been hearing some concerning things from Aunt Mabel. She says you've been controlling Elliot's finances and cutting her off completely. I know it's none of my business, but I'm worried about the family dynamic. Is everything okay? I stared at the screen, my hands shaking with anger. So, this was Mabel's game now? Spreading rumors, trying to turn the family against me? I called out to Elliot, my voice tight with fury. You need to see this. Your mother's been busy. As Elliot read the email, his face grew pale. I can't believe she'd do this. Can't you? I asked bitterly. She's trying to paint me as the villain, Elliot. She's manipulating everyone, including you. He looked at me, his eyes filled with a mix of sadness and determination. Not anymore. I'm done letting her come between us. We need to set the record straight with the family. I nodded, feeling a glimmer of hope. Together? Together, he agreed, squeezing my hand. As we sat down to craft a response to Sarah and plan our next moves, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. Mabel had underestimated us, thinking she could drive a wedge between us. But she'd only succeeded in bringing us closer together. This battle was far from over, but for the first time in weeks, I felt like we might actually win. The email from Gideon, our business mentor, landed in my inbox with a soft ping. I opened it, my heart racing as I scanned the contents. Daphne, Elliot, it read, I have exciting news. A major retailer in Paris is interested in carrying your line. They want to meet with you both next month to discuss terms. This could be the international break you've been waiting for. I called out to Elliot, who was in the kitchen. Elliot, come here, quick. He rushed in, a dish towel still in his hands. What is it? Is everything okay? I turned the screen towards him, grinning. Read this. Gideon's lined up a meeting in Paris. This could be huge for us. Elliot's eyes widened as he read, a slow smile spreading across his face. Paris? Daphne, this is incredible. We hugged, both of us giddy with excitement. For a moment, all the stress of the past few weeks melted away. This was what we'd been working towards, a chance to take our business to the next level. We need to start planning, I said, already reaching for my notebook. Flights, hotel, samples to bring. Elliot's smile faltered slightly. What about Mom? She's going to flip when she hears about this. I felt a twinge of irritation. Elliot, this isn't about your mother. This is about our business, our future. He nodded, but I could see the conflict in his eyes. I know. It's just, she's been having a hard time lately. Maybe we could. No. I cut him off firmly. We are not bringing her into this. She'll find a way to make it all about her, just like she always does. Elliot sighed, running a hand through his hair. You're right. I'll talk to her, explain that this is a business trip. I squeezed his hand, trying to recapture our earlier excitement. This is our moment, Elliot. Let's not let anything spoil it. Over the next few days, we threw ourselves into preparations. I spent hours selecting the perfect pieces to showcase, while Elliot pored over financial projections and marketing strategies. We were so focused that we almost forgot about the Mabel situation. Almost. The call came on a Tuesday afternoon. I was in the middle of packing some samples when my phone rang. Elliot's name flashed on the screen. Hey, how'd the meeting go? I asked, knowing he'd been out with a potential local investor. His voice was tight when he answered. It went fine. But, Daphne, we have a problem. Mom found out about Paris. My stomach dropped. How? I don't know. She must have overheard me talking to someone. She showed up at the cafe where I was meeting the investor, making a scene about how we're abandoning her. I closed my eyes, trying to keep my temper in check. What did you tell her? I tried to explain that it was a business trip, but she wouldn't listen. She's insisting on coming with us. Absolutely not, I snapped. Elliot, you can't be serious. I know, he said, sounding defeated. But she's threatening to tell everyone that we're leaving her destitute, that we're using the business to cut her out of the family fortune. I laughed bitterly. What fortune? The money she's been leeching off us? Daphne, please, Elliot pleaded. I don't know what to do. I took a deep breath, trying to think rationally. We need to stand firm on this, Elliot. If we give in now, she'll never stop. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. You're right, he said finally. I'll talk to her again. Make it clear that this isn't up for discussion. After we hung up, I sat down heavily on the bed, surrounded by half-packed suitcases. This should have been a joyous time, full of anticipation for our big opportunity. Instead, it felt tainted by Mabel's constant interference. I picked up my phone again, dialing Clara's number. I needed a friendly ear, someone outside the situation who could offer some perspective. Clara? It's me. Got a minute? As I poured out the whole story to my friend, I felt some of the tension leaving my body. Clara listened patiently, then offered her advice. Daphne, honey, you need to focus on what's important here. This Paris deal could change everything for you and Elliot. Don't let Mabel derail that. But how do we stop her? I asked, feeling helpless. You stand your ground, Clara said firmly. Both of you, united front. Make it clear that this is non-negotiable. After we hung up, I felt more resolved. Clara was right. We couldn't let Mabel's drama overshadow this opportunity. When Elliot got home that evening, I was waiting for him in the living room. We need to talk, I said, patting the seat next to me on the couch. He sat down, looking wary. About Mom? I nodded. About Mom, about Paris, about our future. Elliot, we can't keep letting her control our lives like this. He sighed, rubbing his face. I know. You're right. But what do we do? I took his hand, squeezing it gently. We stand together. We tell her in no uncertain terms that she's not coming to Paris, and that if she continues to spread lies about us, we'll have no choice but to cut ties completely. Elliot looked at me, a mix of fear and determination in his eyes. Okay, he said softly. Okay, let's do it. As we sat there, planning our confrontation with Mabel, I felt a glimmer of hope. Whatever came next, at least we were facing it together. The envelope arrived on a Tuesday, innocuous and unassuming. I almost tossed it with the junk mail, but something made me pause. The return address was unfamiliar, a law firm I'd never heard of. Elliot, I called out, my voice tight with apprehension. You need to see this. He appeared from his home office, brow furrowed at my tone. What is it? I handed him the envelope. It's addressed to both of us. We sat at the kitchen table as Elliot carefully opened it. His face paled as he scanned the contents. It's a notice of pending legal action against us for elder financial abuse. The room spun. What? That's ridiculous. Who would? But I knew the answer before I finished the question. Mabel. Elliot nodded grimly. She's claiming we've been systematically draining her accounts, manipulating her into giving us money. I laughed bitterly. That's rich, coming from her. We need to call our lawyer. As Elliot made the call, I paced the kitchen, my mind racing. How had it come to this? And more importantly, how far was Mabel willing to go? Our lawyer, Sarah, arrived within the hour. As we explained the situation, her face grew increasingly grave. This is serious, she said, leafing through the documents. These allegations, if proven, could not only damage your reputation but potentially your business as well. But they're lies. I exploded. We have bank statements, records of every transaction. We can prove she's the one who's been taking from us. Sarah held up a hand. I believe you, Daphne, but we need to approach this carefully. Mabel's playing a dangerous game, and we need to make sure we have all our ducks in a row. As Sarah outlined our options, a thought nagged at me. How had Mabel afforded a lawyer? Last we knew, She was practically begging us for money. Elliot, I interrupted, did your mother ever mention any other sources of income? Investments, maybe? He shook his head, looking puzzled. No, why? I turned to Sarah. Is there any way we can look into Mabel's finances? I have a feeling there's more going on here than we know. Sarah nodded slowly. We can request financial disclosures as part of the legal process. It might give us a clearer picture of what we're dealing with. After Sarah left, Elliot and I sat in stunned silence. Our Paris trip, once a beacon of hope, now felt like a distant dream. I can't believe she'd do this, Elliot murmured, his voice thick with emotion. My own mother. I reached across the table, squeezing his hand. We'll get through this, Elliot. We have the truth on our side. The next few days were a blur of legal consultations and frantic phone calls. We had to postpone our Paris meeting, explaining the situation to a very understanding Gideon. But as we dug deeper into Mabel's finances, a disturbing pattern emerged. Look at this, I said, pointing to a series of transactions on my laptop screen. Large deposits, always just under the reporting threshold. And look at the dates. They coincide with her biggest demands for money from us. Elliot leaned in, his face a mask of confusion. But where is this money coming from? And if she had it, why was she always asking us for more? A sickening realization dawned on me. Elliot, what if she's involved in something illegal? Money laundering, maybe? He recoiled, as if I'd slapped him.
No.
No, that's impossible. My mother wouldn't. Wouldn't she? I pressed. Think about it. The constant need for cash, the lavish spending, the way she always seemed to bounce back no matter how much she claimed to be struggling. Elliot stood abruptly, pacing the room. This is crazy. We can't accuse my mother of being a criminal. We might not have a choice, I said softly. If we don't get to the bottom of this, she could destroy everything we've built. As the weight of the situation settled over us, I felt a steely resolve forming in my gut. Mabel had pushed us too far this time. It was time to fight back. I picked up my phone, dialing Clara's number. Clara? It's me. I need a favor. You still have that contact in the financial crimes unit, right? Elliot's head snapped up, his eyes wide. Daphne, what are you doing? I met his gaze, unflinching. What we should have done a long time ago. We're going to find out exactly what your mother's been up to, and we're going to put a stop to it. As I explained the situation to Clara, I saw the conflict warring in Elliot's eyes. But beneath the pain and confusion, there was something else. A glimmer of determination. Okay, he said quietly as I hung up.
Okay.
Let's do this. But Daphne, if we go down this road, there's no going back. Are you sure? I took his hand, squeezing it tightly. I'm sure. Whatever happens, we face it together. As we settled in to wait for Clara's call back, I felt a mix of dread and anticipation. We were about to uncover the truth about Mabel, for better or worse. And nothing would ever be the same again. The drive to Mabel's house felt like the longest 30 minutes of my life. Elliot sat beside me, his jaw clenched, knuckles white on the steering wheel. The file from Clara's contact in the financial crimes unit lay heavy in my lap, a damning compilation of evidence we could no longer ignore. Are you sure about this? Elliot asked, his voice barely above a whisper. I reached over, squeezing his arm. We have to do this, Elliot. For us, for the business, for everything we've worked for. He nodded, eyes fixed on the road ahead. As we pulled into Mabel's driveway, I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the confrontation to come. Mabel answered the door in a silk robe, surprise flickering across her face. Elliot? Daphne? What are you doing here? We need to talk, Mom, Elliot said, his voice firm. Can we come in? She hesitated for a moment before stepping aside. As we entered her lavishly decorated living room, I couldn't help but notice the new artwork on the walls, the gleaming crystal vase on the coffee table. More evidence of her inexplicable wealth. What's this about? Mabel asked, perching on the edge of an armchair. If it's about that silly legal misunderstanding. It's not a misunderstanding, I interrupted, my patience wearing thin. And I think you know that. Mabel's eyes narrowed. I don't know what you're implying, Daphne, but I don't appreciate your tone. Elliot stepped forward, placing a hand on my shoulder. Mom, we know about the money, the deposits, the laundering, all of it. The color drained from Mabel's face. I I don't know what you're talking about. I opened the file, spreading documents across the coffee table. Bank statements, transaction records, even surveillance photos of Mabel meeting with known criminals. It's all here, Mabel. Every lie, every scheme. For a moment, Mabel seemed to deflate, the carefully crafted facade crumbling. Then, like a cornered animal, she lashed out. So, what if it is? You think you're so perfect, don't you? Little Miss Self-Made, with your precious jewelry business. You have no idea what it's like to struggle, to fight for every scrap. Mom, stop, Elliot pleaded, but Mabel was on a roll. I did what I had to do to survive, to give Elliot the life he deserved, and now you want to take it all away. She turned to Elliot, eyes brimming with tears. Are you going to let her do this to me? Your own mother? I watched Elliot, my heart pounding. This was the moment of truth, the crossroads we'd been hurtling towards for months. Elliot took a deep breath, his voice steady. Mom, what you've done, it's wrong. It's illegal. And it has to stop. Mabel recoiled as if she'd been slapped. You're choosing her over me? After everything I've sacrificed for you. This isn't about choosing sides, Elliot said, his voice cracking. It's about doing what's right. We can't keep enabling this behavior. It has to end. Mabel's face contorted with rage. You ungrateful little. She lunged for the file, scattering papers across the room. I jumped to my feet, grabbing her wrists. Mabel, stop. This isn't just about us anymore. The authorities know. If you don't come clean now, it'll only be worse when they come for you. She wrenched away from me, stumbling back. Get out. Both of you. Get out of my house. Elliot stepped forward, his face a mask of pain. Mom, please. Let us help you. We can find a way through this, but you have to be honest. For a moment, I saw a flicker of something in Mabel's eyes. Regret? Fear? But it was quickly replaced by cold fury. I don't need your help. I've managed just fine on my own all these years. And I'll continue to do so. Even if it means losing your son? I asked quietly. Mabel's gaze snapped to mine, then to Elliot. The silence stretched between us, heavy with unspoken words and shattered trust. Finally, Elliot spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. Mom, this is your last chance. Come clean. Let us help you make this right. Or what? Mabel sneered. You'll turn me in? Your own mother? Elliot's shoulders sagged. If that's what it takes to protect our family, our business, yes. The finality in his voice seemed to hit Mabel like a physical blow. She sank onto the couch, suddenly looking every one of her years. Get out, she whispered. Just get out. As we left, I glanced back to see Mabel hunched over, her face in her hands. For a moment, I felt a pang of sympathy. But then I remembered everything she'd done, every lie, every manipulation, and my resolve hardened. In the car, Elliot sat motionless, staring at nothing. I reached over, taking his hand. You did the right thing, I said softly. He nodded, squeezing my hand. I know, but it doesn't make it any easier. As we drove home, the weight of what had just happened settled over us. We'd confronted Mabel, drawn our line in the sand. But the battle was far from over. The real test was yet to come. The silence in our home was deafening. Elliot sat at the kitchen table, staring blankly at the untouched cup of coffee in front of him. I watched him from the doorway, my heart aching. It had been 3 days since our confrontation with Mabel, and the weight of his decision hung heavy in the air. Elliot, I said softly, moving to sit beside him. We need to talk about what happens next. He looked up, his eyes red-rimmed from lack of sleep. What is there to talk about? I've cut ties with my own mother. I've chosen our business, our future, over her. Isn't that enough? I reached out, taking his hand. It's not about what's enough. It's about protecting ourselves, our livelihood. We need to make this official. Elliot's brow furrowed. Official? What do you mean? I took a deep breath. I've been talking to our lawyer. She thinks we should file a restraining order against Mabel to protect our assets, our reputation. Elliot jerked his hand away as if I'd burned him. A restraining order? Against my mother? Daphne, that's too far. Is it? I pressed. After everything she's done? The theft, the lies, the threats to our business. He stood abruptly, pacing the kitchen. She's still my mother, Daphne. I can't just erase her from our lives completely. I felt my frustration rising. Elliot, she's made her choice. She chose her schemes over us. We have to protect ourselves. By legally banishing her? Elliot's voice rose. Do you have any idea what that would do to her? To our family? Our family? I stood, facing him. Elliot, we're the family now. You and me. Our business, our future. That's what we need to protect. The doorbell rang, cutting through the tension. We both froze, exchanging wary glances. I moved to answer it, Elliot close behind. I opened the door to find Mabel standing there, looking smaller and more fragile than I'd ever seen her. Can I come in? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I hesitated, looking to Elliot. He nodded, his face a mask of conflicting emotions. Mabel settled onto our couch, her hands twisting in her lap. I've been doing a lot of thinking, she began. About what you said, about the choices I've made. I sat across from her. Elliot perched on the arm of my chair. We waited in tense silence for her to continue. I've made a mess of things, Mabel admitted, her voice cracking. I never meant for it to go this far. It started small, you know? A little extra cash here and there. But then it grew, and I couldn't stop. I didn't want to stop. Elliot leaned forward. Why, Mom? Why did you do it? Mabel's eyes filled with tears. I was scared, Elliot. Scared of being left behind, of becoming irrelevant. I saw you and Daphne, so successful, so happy. I wanted to be part of that. I thought if I had money, if I could keep up with your lifestyle, you'd still need me. The room fell silent as her words sank in. I felt a mix of pity and anger swirling in my chest. That doesn't excuse what you did, I said finally. The lies, the manipulation, the threats to our business. Mabel nodded, wiping at her eyes. I know it doesn't. That's why I'm here. I've turned myself in. Elliot gasped. What? I went to the police this morning, Mabel explained. I told them everything. About the money laundering, the fraud, all of it. They're probably searching my house right now. I sat back, stunned. This was the last thing I'd expected. Elliot knelt in front of his mother, taking her hands. Mom, why? Why now? Mabel looked at him, then at me. Because I realized what I was about to lose. My son, my family. I couldn't bear it. I'd rather face the consequences of my actions than lose you both forever. I felt tears pricking at my eyes. Despite everything, I couldn't help but be moved by her admission. What happens now? I asked, my voice hoarse. Mabel straightened her shoulders. Now I face the music. I'll probably go to jail, at least for a while. But before that happens, I wanted to come here. To apologize to both of you. And to ask if there's any chance you could forgive me. Not now, maybe not for a long time. But someday. Elliot looked at me, his eyes pleading. I took a deep breath, weighing everything we'd been through against this moment of vulnerability. It won't be easy, I said slowly. There's a lot of hurt, a lot of mistrust to overcome. But if you're truly committed to making amends, to changing, maybe we can start to rebuild. Slowly. Elliot's face lit up with relief and gratitude. He squeezed my hand before turning back to Mabel. We'll take it one day at a time, Mom. Together. As Mabel broke down in tears, Elliot enveloping her in a hug, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. The road ahead would be long and difficult, but for the first time in months, I felt a glimmer of hope. We had faced our toughest challenge and come out stronger. Whatever came next, we would face it as a united front. The Parisian sun streamed through the windows of our hotel room, casting a warm glow on the scattered jewelry samples and business documents strewn across the bed. I stood at the window, taking in the view of the Eiffel Tower in the distance, a sight that still felt surreal after all we'd been through to get here. Daphne? Elliot's voice pulled me from my reverie. The car's here. Are you ready? I turned to face him, smoothing down my blazer. As ready as I'll ever be. This is it, Elliot. Everything we've worked for. He crossed the room, taking my hands in his. We've got this. Together. The drive to the headquarters of Maison Lumière, one of France's most prestigious jewelry retailers, was a blur of nervous anticipation. As we entered the sleek, modern building, I felt a flutter of anxiety in my stomach. Mr. and Mrs. Pearson, a smartly dressed woman, approached us. I'm Sophie Dubois, head of acquisitions. We're delighted to have you here. The meeting room was intimidating, all glass and chrome, with a view of the Paris skyline that threatened to distract me from the task at hand. But as soon as we began our presentation, everything else faded away. This was our moment, our chance to take our small business global. I watched the faces of the executives as Elliot walked them through our business plan, saw their eyes light up as I unveiled our latest designs. When we finished, there was a moment of silence that felt like an eternity. Finally, Monsieur Lefebvre, the CEO, spoke. Madame et Monsieur Pearson, we are most impressed. Your designs are fresh, innovative, yet with a timeless quality that aligns perfectly with our brand. We would be honored to feature your collection in our stores. The rest of the meeting passed in a whirlwind of handshakes, contract discussions, and champagne toasts. As we left the building, I felt lightheaded with joy and disbelief. We did it, Elliot whispered, pulling me close. We really did it. That evening, as we celebrated over dinner at a small bistro, my phone buzzed with a text. It was from Clara. How did it go? The suspense is killing me. I smiled, quickly typing back. We got the deal. Call you tomorrow with details. Give Gideon a hug from us. As I put my phone away, Elliot reached across the table, taking my hand. I couldn't have done this without you, Daphne. Through everything, the business struggles, the issues with Mom, you've been my rock. I squeezed his hand, feeling a lump form in my throat. We did this together, Elliot. As a team. His face grew serious. Speaking of Mom, I got an email from her lawyer today. I felt a flicker of anxiety. Oh, what did it say? She's completed her first month of mandated therapy. The lawyer says she's making progress, really confronting her issues. Elliot paused, his eyes searching mine. She's asked if we might consider visiting when we get back. I took a deep breath, considering my words carefully. How do you feel about that? Elliot sighed. Honestly, I'm not sure. Part of me wants to believe she's changed, that we can rebuild some kind of relationship. But another part is scared of getting hurt again. I finished for him. He nodded. Exactly. I thought about Mabel, about all the pain and chaos she'd caused. But I also thought about her vulnerability that day in our living room, her willingness to face the consequences of her actions. Maybe, I said slowly, we can take it one step at a time. Set clear boundaries, but leave the door open for healing. If she's genuinely committed to change, we can be there to support that journey. Elliot's eyes welled with tears. You'd be willing to do that? After everything? I reached up, cupping his cheek. For you, for us, yes. We're stronger together now. We can face anything, even this. As we walked back to our hotel that night, hand in hand under the twinkling lights of Paris, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. We'd weathered the storm, emerged stronger, and now stood on the brink of a new chapter in our lives. The next morning, as we packed for our flight home, Elliot paused, a thoughtful expression on his face. You know, with this deal, we could afford to move, get a bigger place, maybe even start thinking about a family. I finished, a smile spreading across my face. He nodded, looking both excited and nervous. Is that something you'd want? I crossed the room, wrapping my arms around him. With you? Absolutely. As we left the hotel, stepping out into the bustling streets of Paris, I felt a surge of excitement for the future. We had faced our toughest challenges and come out stronger. Our business was thriving, Our relationship was solid, and even the complicated dynamics with Mabel held the potential for healing. Whatever came next, expanding our business, starting a family, rebuilding relationships, we would face it together. We had learned the hard way that trust, communication, and unwavering support for each other were the foundations of both a successful partnership and a thriving business. As we hailed a taxi to the airport, I took one last look at the city that had marked the beginning of our new chapter. The road ahead might not always be smooth, but I knew that together, Elliot and I could handle whatever life threw our way. Our journey had taught us that true strength lies not in avoiding challenges, but in facing them head-on with love, understanding, and an unbreakable bond. And that, I realized, was the most precious jewel of all.
The gallery lights cast harsh shadows across my photographs, each image a silent accusation of everything my family refused to see. I adjusted the final piece, a stark black and white portrait of abandonment captured in an empty playground swing moving in the wind. Perfect metaphor for my life, really. They're not coming, are they? Sophie's voice carried across the empty exhibition space. My best friend already knew the answer, but she needed me to say it. I checked my phone again. No missed calls, no messages, just a 2-word text from Mom sent hours ago. Meeting running late. Of course not, I said, pocketing the phone. Mother dearest has an important case, and Dad's probably saving someone's life, or maybe they're both at Ryan's latest tech launch, or Evan's real estate thing. Take your pick. Sophie squeezed my shoulder. Millie, you've worked too hard to let them ruin this. The Times critic is coming. This could be huge for you. I'm Millie Thompson, eldest child, and perpetual disappointment to my high-achieving family. Tonight was supposed to be different. My first solo exhibition, the culmination of years of struggle and determination. I'd even named it Family Portraits, a not-so-subtle dig at the people who should have been here. The gallery door chimed. My heart jumped, but it was just Jake, my boyfriend, carrying a bouquet of wildflowers. His musician's salary couldn't afford roses, but these meant more anyway. He took one look at my face and knew. They're assholes, he said simply, handing me the flowers. Language, dear, came a familiar voice. Grandma Rose appeared behind him, her silver hair immaculate as always. Though in this case, I agree with the sentiment. Grandma, you shouldn't have come all this way. Nonsense, I wouldn't miss my granddaughter's triumph. She surveyed the room with sharp eyes. Though I see your parents are maintaining their perfect record of absence. The first guests started arriving. Critics, gallery owners, local artists, all the right people. I plastered on my professional smile and played hostess, but every time the door opened, I couldn't help looking. Hoping. An hour in, my phone buzzed. A text from Ryan. Sorry, sis, Mom and Dad are at my investor meeting. Huge deal. You understand, right? I did understand. I understood perfectly. The critic from the Times praised my raw emotional honesty and unflinching examination of familial disconnect. If he only knew. As the evening wound down, Grandma Rose pulled me aside. There's something you should know, dear. About your brother's success. She hesitated, then pressed an envelope into my hand. Look at these when you're alone, and remember, you're stronger than they think. I slipped the envelope into my bag, questions burning in my throat, but Grandma Rose just kissed my cheek and left, her perfume lingering like a promise. Later that night, after Jake had gone home and Sophie had helped clean up, I sat alone in my small apartment. The envelope contained bank statements, investment reports, emails. My hands shook as I read them. Everything. My brother's companies, their success, their perfect lives, built on lies and stolen money. Our parents had orchestrated it all, funneling millions into their ventures, while telling me I needed to learn independence. I looked at my phone. Another text from Mom. Sorry we missed it. Dinner next week? I didn't reply. Instead, I opened my laptop and began planning my next exhibition. This one wouldn't be subtle. This one would show exactly who my family really was, in perfect, high-resolution detail. They wanted a successful daughter. Fine. I'd give them one they'd never forget. The first light of dawn was creeping through my windows when I finally went to bed. My dreams full of shattered family portraits and the sweet taste of revenge. The documents from Grandma Rose's envelope spread across my coffee table like a roadmap of betrayal. Each statement showed another investment in my brother's ventures. Hundreds of thousands funneled through shell companies and creative accounting. I'd spent 3 days analyzing every detail, my camera gathering dust in the corner. My phone buzzed. Mother's weekly guilt trip right on schedule. "Darling, you missed Sunday dinner again. The boys asked about you." I bet they did. Probably worried what else Grandma Rose had told me. The buzzer rang. Jake right on time with coffee and his usual optimism. "Got your favorite," he said, setting down 2 cups. He glanced at the papers. "Still digging." "Look at this," I said, holding up a document. $2 million to Ryan's tech startup through a holding company. Same day Mom told me they couldn't help with my gallery rent because they were teaching me financial responsibility. Jake settled beside me, his guitar-calloused fingers brushing mine. "What are you going to do?" Before I could answer, my phone lit up with a text from Evan. "Big family announcement tonight. Mom insists you come. No excuses." "Perfect timing," I muttered, showing Jake the message. "You're not actually going, are you?" I started gathering the documents. "Oh, I'm going, with my camera." The Thompson family estate loomed like a modern fortress, all glass and sharp angles. Mother's Mercedes and father's Audi sat in their usual spots, alongside Ryan's Tesla and Evan's Range Rover. My beat-up Volkswagen looked like a stray dog that had wandered into a purebred show. Inside, the usual performance was in full swing. Mother holding court in her designer dress, father checking his phone for surgical consults, the Golden Boys commanding attention like twin conductors of an orchestra. "Millie," Evan's voice carried that familiar false warmth, "finally decided to grace us with your presence." "Wouldn't miss it," I said, patting my camera bag. "Documenting family moments is kind of my thing now." Ryan shifted uncomfortably. "About your exhibition, we really meant to." "Save it," I cut him off, watching Mother's expression tighten. "I'm sure your investor meeting was far more important." Father finally looked up from his phone. "Speaking of investments, your brothers have some exciting news." Of course they did. "We're merging companies," Ryan announced. "Tech meets real estate, revolutionary concept." "With a significant investment from Mom and Dad," Evan added, beaming. I couldn't help myself. "Through Cayman Holdings Limited, or are you using the Singapore Shell Company this time?" The room went silent. Mother's wine glass rose halfway to her lips. "What exactly are you implying?" Father's voice had that dangerous edge he used with difficult patience. I pulled out my camera, snapping a quick shot of their faces. "Just documenting the moment, for my next exhibition. I'm thinking of calling it Family Finances. Has a nice ring to it." "That's enough," Mother snapped. "If you're just here to cause trouble..." "Trouble?" I laughed, the sound sharp as broken glass. "Like the trouble of falsifying investment documents, or the trouble of systematic financial manipulation to keep your eldest child dependent while funneling millions to your precious sons." Ryan stood up. "You don't understand." "Oh, I understand perfectly." I took another photo, capturing his panic. "The question is, will your investors understand when they see the evidence?" "Evidence?" Father's voice wavered slightly. I pulled out my phone, scrolling through the documents. Amazing what a determined photographer can capture. Every transaction, every shell company, every lie. I looked directly at Mother. "How do you think your law firm will react to this kind of creative accounting?" "You wouldn't dare," she whispered. "Watch me." I stood up, gathering my things. "Consider this your warning shot. There's more where this came from, and I'm done being the family disappointment." As I walked out, Evan called after me. "Millie, wait, we can explain." I turned back one last time, raising my camera. Click. The perfect shot of a family facade cracking under pressure. In my car, Hands shaking, I called Jake. "How'd it go?" he asked. "They know," I said, starting the engine. "And this is just the beginning." "Be careful," he warned. "Wounded animals are the most dangerous." I smiled, thinking of the photos I'd just taken. Good thing I've got plenty of evidence to protect myself, and this time, I'm the one calling the shots. Grandma Rosa's hands trembled as she laid out more documents on her antique dining table. "Your mother thought I was too old to understand modern banking," she said, sliding another folder toward me. "She forgot I managed your grandfather's investment firm for 30 years after his death." The morning sun through her bay windows cast shadows across photographs of my brother's groundbreaking ceremonies, press conferences, product launches, all carefully orchestrated lies. "There's something else," Grandma Rose said, her voice dropping. She pulled out a weathered envelope. "Your college fund, the one they claimed was lost in bad investments." My throat tightened. What about it? It wasn't lost. They transferred it to Ryan's first startup. Every penny. The room spun slightly. Those years of working 3 jobs between classes, eating ramen, selling my first camera to make rent, all while they had my money. My phone buzzed. "Ryan, we need to talk, alone." "They're scared," Grandma Rose observed, watching my face. "Good." I met Ryan at his favorite overpriced cafe, where he'd already claimed the most private corner table. His usual confidence had cracked, revealing something I rarely saw. Fear. "Whatever you're planning," he said, "you need to stop." "Or what? You'll tell Mom and Dad? Pretty sure they already know." He leaned forward, voice low. "You don't understand what's at stake. It's not just about the money." "Then enlighten me." "The merger. It's not what we're telling people. We're in trouble, Millie. Deep trouble. If this goes public..." "You mean if your fraud goes public?" "It's not that simple." His fist hit the table, making heads turn. He lowered his voice again. "Evan's real estate deals, my tech contracts, they're all connected. If one falls, everything falls," I finished, "including Mom and Dad." He nodded miserably. "They mortgaged everything to keep us afloat. The house, their retirement, everything." "And whose fault is that?" The words came out sharp as broken glass. "They chose their golden boys. Now they can watch them fall." "Please," Ryan's voice cracked. "We can make this right. Cut you in, whatever you want." I pulled out my camera, capturing his desperate expression. "What I want is 34 years of truth, starting with this." My phone buzzed again. "Evan this time. Mom's in the hospital. Heart attack. Come quick." Ryan's phone lit up with the same message. Our eyes met across the table. "Convenient timing," I said, standing. "Jesus, Millie, this isn't a manipulation. She's our mother." At the hospital, Father paced the waiting room in his surgical scrubs, for once, not the one in control. Evan huddled with his wife in the corner, the perfect family portrait, cracking at the edges. She was reviewing some financial documents, Father said, his voice hollow, then collapsed in her office. I felt the weight of my camera bag heavy with evidence. "What documents?" His eyes met mine, understanding dawning. "You're really going to do this? Destroy everything we built?" "You mean everything you built for them?" I nodded toward my brothers. "Well, teaching me about financial responsibility with money you stole from me. We did what we thought was best. Best for who?" A doctor emerged and everyone tensed. "She's stable," he announced, "but needs rest, no stress." "You hear that, Millie?" Evan said. "No stress, back off." I pulled out my phone, scrolling through the documents. Funny how stress works. Like the stress of working through college because your college fund mysteriously vanished. Or the stress of watching your younger brothers get millions while you can barely make rent. "This isn't the time," Father warned. "It never is." I headed for the door, then turned back. "Oh, and Dad, you might want to check Mother's office. I sent copies of everything to her partners at the firm. Let's see how her heart handles that." In the parking lot, I called Jake. "How bad?" he asked. "Mother's playing the heart attack card, but I found out about my college fund." A pause. "What are you going to do?" I watched through the hospital windows as my family huddled together, excluding me even now. I'm going to finish what they started. It's time everyone saw the real Thompson family portrait. Be careful, Jake said. You're playing with fire. Good thing I've got plenty of evidence to fireproof myself with. I started my car. And Jake, thank you for being on my side. Always, he said softly. Just make sure this revenge doesn't burn you too. But as I drove away from the hospital, I knew it was too late for warnings. The fire was already burning, and I intended to watch it all go up in flames. The gallery buzzed with anticipation as I hung the final piece, a massive photograph of my brother's merger announcement, overlaid with transparent copies of their fraudulent financial documents. Art meets evidence, the perfect centerpiece for my new exhibition, Family Values. Sophie touched my arm. Channel 8 is here, and the Business Journal. Right on schedule. I adjusted the lighting, making sure every detail was visible, every lie exposed. My phone vibrated. Evan. I let it go to voicemail, like I had with the previous 12 calls from my family. The exhibition opening was in 30 minutes. Let them see it with everyone else. Jake appeared with coffee, his face tight with concern. Security's in place. Your family won't be able to shut this down. They can try. I checked my watch. Where's Grandma Rose? Here, darling. She emerged from the crowd, elegant as always. Though I'm afraid we have company, Mother's legal team filed in, led by her senior partner, Harrison Wells. All tailored suits and predatory smiles. Miss Thompson, Harrison approached, brandishing papers. We have a cease and desist order. I took a photo of him holding the documents. Perfect for the collection. On what grounds? Defamation, invasion of privacy, corporate espionage. Truth is an absolute defense against defamation, I quoted, remembering Mother's frequent boast. And everything here is true, isn't it, Harrison? Including the documents showing how your firm helped cover up their fraud. His smile faltered. Behind him, several reporters perked up, scenting blood. You're making a mistake, he warned quietly. Your mother is still recovering from her convenient heart attack. Funny how that happened right when... Millie, Ryan's voice cut through the crowd. He stood with Evan at the gallery entrance, both looking exhausted. Please, don't do this. I raised my camera. Click. Too late. The exhibition opened. Crowds moved through the space, murmuring at the evidence displayed alongside artistic photographs capturing years of familial manipulation. Financial documents became abstract patterns. Bank statements transformed into damning poetry. A reporter approached. Miss Thompson, these allegations against Thompson Technologies and Evans Development are all supported by documentation, I finished, pointing to the wall of evidence, including proof that they stole my college fund to launch their first ventures. More reporters gathered. Questions flew, cameras flashed. Then Father arrived, looking older than I'd ever seen him. You've made your point, he said quietly. Name your price. I laughed. My price? You think this is about money? Then what do you want? The truth, all of it, starting with why. A commotion at the entrance interrupted us. Mother stormed in, ignoring her doctor's orders, face flushed with fury or exertion, or both. You ungrateful, she started, then clutched her chest. Father rushed to her side, but she waved him off, straightening. If you think this little stunt will what? I challenged. Expose how you built your precious sons' careers by stealing from me. Show everyone the real Thompson family values. We gave you everything, she exploded. We taught you independence while they what? Needed coddling, millions in secret funding, my money. The gallery had gone silent, everyone watching our family implode in real time. Phones recorded. Reporters scribbled. You don't understand, Mother said, her voice breaking. We had to protect them. They're not like you, they're not strong enough to... She stopped, realizing what she'd admitted. In front of everyone, Ryan and Evan stared at her, their perfect world cracking. I raised my camera one last time, capturing the moment their golden pedestals crumbled. Thank you, Mother. That's exactly what I needed. As security escorted my family out, Jake squeezed my hand. You okay? I watched the reporters swarm, the social media posts multiply, my family's carefully constructed facade dissolving in real time. No, I admitted, but I will be. Grandma Rose appeared beside me. It's not over, you know. They'll fight back. Let them. I surveyed my work. Truth transformed into art, secrets exposed in beautiful, damning detail. I've got nothing left to lose. But as the night wore on and the story spread, I wondered if that was really true, and if the price of revenge would be higher than even I was prepared to pay. The media circus exploded faster than I'd anticipated. 3 days after my exhibition, Thompson Technologies stock plummeted 60%. Evan's real estate empire faced multiple fraud investigations. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing with reporters seeking comments. I scrolled through the headlines on my laptop. Thompson family scandal deepens. Tech prodigy's house of cards. Real estate empire built on stolen dreams. Sophie set down a coffee beside me. Your cousin Andrea called. Says the whole extended family is taking sides. Let me guess which side they're choosing. I closed the laptop, too tired to read more. The satisfaction I'd expected felt hollow, leaving a metallic taste in my mouth. My phone lit up. An unknown number. Miss Thompson, this is Detective Marcus Chen, Financial Crimes Division. We'd like to discuss your evidence against Thompson Technologies. The police. I hadn't expected that. My hands shook as I ended the call. Jake found me in my darkroom later, developing photos from the exhibition opening. Mother's face contorted in rage, father's defeated posture, my brother's crumbling facades. Ryan's wife left him, Jake said quietly, took their kids to her parents' place in Boston. The image in the developer tray slowly revealed itself. Ryan and Evan, looking lost in their expensive suits. For a moment, I saw us as children again, before the money and lies corrupted everything. They made their choices, I said, but my voice wavered. Millie, Jake's tone made me look up. Your father's hospital suspended him. There's talk of a medical board investigation. Good. The word came out automatically, but my stomach clenched. My phone buzzed again. Grandma Rose. Turn on Channel 5 now. I rushed to the living room. Mother stood at a podium outside her law firm, looking smaller than I'd ever seen her. I am announcing my immediate resignation as senior partner, she said, her voice cracking. The allegations regarding my family's financial dealings are... She collapsed. The cameras caught everything. Father rushing from the crowd, the paramedics, the chaos. Jesus, Jake whispered. My phone exploded with messages. Ryan, are you happy now? Evan, they're admitting her to cardiac ICU. Father, if anything happens to your mother, it's on you. I grabbed my camera bag, heading for the door. Where are you going? Jake called after me. To finish this. The hospital corridor stretched endless and sterile. Through the ICU window, I saw Mother connected to machines, Father holding her hand. I raised my camera, then slowly lowered it. Quite a show you've put on. Evan's voice behind me, bitter as burnt coffee. But did you know about Ryan's kids? His wife found out she's pregnant. Those children will grow up with their father's name destroyed. Like I grew up with nothing. I turned to face him. While you had everything. We had pressure, he exploded. Constant, crushing pressure to succeed, to be perfect. You were the lucky one. You got to be free. Free? I laughed, the sound echoing harshly. Is that what you call working 3 jobs through college? Selling my equipment to make rent? At least you got to fail on your own terms. We never had that luxury. A nurse hurried past, glaring at us. Through the window, Mother stirred, her monitors beeping faster. My phone buzzed, another reporter wanting comments, then a text from Sophie. Police just left your gallery. They're seizing everything as evidence. The walls seemed to close in. What had I started? The DA's office is involved now, Evan said quietly. They're looking at RICO charges, prison time, all of us, including Mom and Dad. I thought of Mother in handcuffs, Father in prison orange, my brothers in jail cells. The Thompson name splashed across headlines for years to come. You wanted revenge, Evan continued. Congratulations. You've destroyed us all. He walked away, leaving me alone in the sterile corridor with my camera and the weight of what I'd set in motion. My phone buzzed again. Grandma Rose. Come to my house. There's something you need to see, something that changes everything. I looked one last time through the ICU window. Mother's eyes opened, meeting mine. In that moment, I saw something I'd never expected. Fear. The same fear I felt growing in my own chest as I realized this revenge had taken on a life of its own. And I wasn't sure I could control where it ended, or who it would destroy next. Grandma Rose's hands shook as she pushed a yellowed envelope across her antique coffee table. I should have shown you this years ago, she said, but I was afraid of what it would do to you. Inside, I found a suicide note. My grandfather's handwriting, dated 2 days before his heart attack 30 years ago. He discovered your mother's first financial manipulation, Grandma Rose said quietly. She was embezzling from his firm to start her law practice. When he confronted her, the words blurred on the page. My revenge wasn't original at all. I was just repeating family history, right down to the heart attacks. My phone buzzed. Detective Chen again. I ignored it, like I'd ignored the last 6 calls. Your mother learned from the best, Grandma Rose continued. She watched how your grandfather's death destroyed our family. And now I'm doing the same thing. The realization hit like a physical blow. My phone lit up with a news alert. Thompson Technologies files for bankruptcy, thousands of jobs at risk. Thousands. Not just my brothers, not just my parents. Thousands of innocent people. Jake called next. Millie, turn on the news, now. I fumbled for the remote. Ryan stood at a podium, looking haunted. In light of recent revelations, Thompson Technologies will cease operations effective immediately. Our 4,000 employees. His voice cracked. We regret... He couldn't finish. Evan appeared, supporting him as reporters shouted questions. What have I done? The words came out as a whisper. What you had to, Grandma Rose said, but her voice lacked conviction. My phone exploded with messages. Sophie, police just left your apartment. They have a warrant. Jake, don't go home. Come to my place. An unknown number. Your brother Ryan just attempted suicide. Metropolitan Hospital ER. The room spun. I grabbed my camera bag, running for the door. Millie, wait, Grandma Rose called after me. There's more you need to know. But I was already gone. The hospital corridor stretched endless and white. Through the ER doors, I glimpsed Father arguing with doctors, Mother sobbing in a chair, despite her own cardiac concerns. Evan paced, phone to his ear, probably talking to lawyers. I raised my camera automatically, then stopped. What was I documenting now? The destruction I'd caused? Happy now? Evan spotted me. He took sleeping pills, lots of them, left a note about failing everyone, about the workers losing their jobs, about his kids growing up ashamed. I never meant... You meant exactly this, he snarled. You wanted us destroyed. Congratulations, mission accomplished. Mother looked up, saw me. The hatred in her eyes made me step back. Miss Thompson? Detective Chen appeared beside me. You need to come with us, now. What's happening? We have evidence suggesting you manipulated some of the financial documents in your exhibition, created false narratives for revenge. That's impossible. I have proof. Your proof has been compromised. Your grandmother's testimony. What? She provided evidence that she helped you fabricate documents to destroy your family's reputation. She's already given her statement. The floor seemed to tilt. Grandma Rose had betrayed me? Or had I betrayed myself, so blinded by revenge I couldn't see what was real anymore? Through the ER window, I watched the doctors work on Ryan. Mother's sobs echoed down the corridor. Father's medical career was over. Evan's real estate empire had crumbled. Thousands of innocent employees were jobless. And now, apparently, I was going to jail. My camera felt heavy in my hands. I'd thought I was documenting truth, exposing lies. Instead, I'd become the very thing I hated, someone who destroyed families for personal gain. "Your camera, please." Detective Chen held out his hand. "It's evidence now." I clutched it tighter, my last connection to who I thought I was. "Millie," Jake appeared, breathless from running. "Don't say anything, I called a lawyer." But as I handed over my camera, watching Chen bag it as evidence, I realized no lawyer could fix this. I'd wanted to expose the truth about my family, but the real truth was worse than I'd imagined. I wasn't just like my mother, I was worse. The police station's interrogation room smelled of stale coffee and desperation. Detective Chen spread photographs across the metal table. My exhibition pieces, but different, altered, each one showing evidence of digital manipulation I'd never done. "Your grandmother was very thorough," he said, "provided timestamps, editing software records, everything." My lawyer touched my arm, warning me to stay silent, but the words burst out anyway. "Those aren't my edits. Someone changed them." The door opened. Grandma Rose entered, supported by a police officer, looking frailer than I'd ever seen her. But her eyes, they held something I'd never noticed before, something cold. "Tell her," she said to Chen. "Show her what we found in Theodore Thompson's old files." My grandfather's name hit like a slap. Chen pulled out another file. "Your grandfather didn't commit suicide, Miss Thompson. He was murdered, and we have evidence suggesting your grandmother was involved." The room tilted. "What?" "She's been planning this for 30 years, Chen continued. "Using you to finish what she started, destroying the Thompson family from within." Grandma Rose's frail facade cracked, revealing steel underneath. "They took everything from me. Your mother, your grandfather. They pushed me out of my own company, made me watch while they built their empire on my work. So you used me?" The words tasted like ash. All of it. The documents, the support, the love. The love was real. Her voice sharpened. "That's why I had to protect you from becoming them. Look what they did to you, what they're still doing. I gave you the weapon you needed. By falsifying evidence, making you see the truth. They did steal from you, they did favor your brothers, I just enhanced the proof." The door burst open again. Ryan stood there, pale but alive, with Evan and our parents behind him. Mother's face was ash white, father's hands trembled. "Is it true?" Ryan asked. "About grandfather?" Grandma Rose straightened, suddenly looking decades younger. "He chose your mother over me, his own wife, gave her control of everything we'd built together. So yes, I made sure he paid for that betrayal. And I've spent 30 years watching his precious daughter become exactly what he feared. By destroying innocent lives." I stood up, shaking off my lawyer's restraining hand. "Those workers, Ryan's children, everyone hurt by what I did, what you made me do. I didn't make you do anything." Her smile was terrible. "I just gave you the match. You chose to light the fire." "Enough." Mother's voice cracked like a whip. "You wanted to destroy me? Fine. But using my daughter, making her into your weapon, like you used your sons," Grandma Rose countered. "We're not so different, Lily. We both sacrifice family for revenge." The truth hit me then, looking between these two women. I was becoming both of them. Mother's ruthless ambition, Grandma Rose's calculating revenge. The perfect blend of the worst parts of my family legacy. "Detective," I said quietly, "I'd like to make a statement about everything, the real evidence, the false documents, all of it." "Millie, don't," Grandma Rose started. "You taught me about truth, Grandma. Through the lens, remember? So let's show everyone the whole picture." I looked at my family. Mother's tears, father's shame, my brother's broken dreams. Then at Grandma Rose, who'd orchestrated it all through me. "I'm not choosing sides," I said. "I'm choosing truth. The real truth, not your versions of it." and whatever consequences come with that. You'll lose everything, Grandma Rose warned. I thought of Jake waiting outside, of Sophie's unwavering support, of the person I wanted to be versus the weapon I'd become. No, I said, I'm finally finding myself. Detective Chen pushed a recorder forward. Behind him, my family waited, broken but present. Maybe that was the first truth we all needed to face. We were damaged, but we were still here. I took a deep breath and began to speak, letting the real story emerge through the wreckage of all our carefully constructed lies. It wasn't the revenge story Grandma Rose wanted, or the success story Mother dreamed of. It was messier, harder, more honest. It was mine. The courthouse steps felt colder than they should in spring. I adjusted my camera, capturing the morning light as it hit the bronze Lady Justice above the entrance. My last professional photo for a while. The plea deal ensured that. Jake squeezed my hand as we watched Grandma Rose emerge in handcuffs. She looked smaller now, diminished, but her eyes still held that steel when they met mine. The officers helped her into the police car, and just like that, 30 years of calculated revenge ended with a quiet click of car doors. My phone buzzed. Ryan. They're starting the Employee Relief Fund today. Could use your help with the documentation. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was something. Inside the courthouse, Mother waited with her own lawyers. The sight of her made my chest tight, but I forced myself to approach. The restitution payments are set up, I said, handing her a folder. Everything I earned from the exhibition plus my savings. It won't fix everything, but... Keep it. She looked older, grayer, but somehow more real than she'd ever been. Use it to rebuild your gallery. The right way this time. Mother, I've spent too many years trying to control my children's lives. She smoothed her jacket, a lawyer's habit. Look where that got us. Through the window, we watched Grandma Rose's police car pull away. 3 generations of Thompson women, each thinking we knew best, each leaving destruction in our wake. She loved you, you know, Mother said quietly. That wasn't a lie. Just like I loved your brothers, and you, even if I showed it wrong. The words hung between us, fragile as camera film. Father and my brothers waited in the corridor, all of us broken in different ways. Evan's real estate empire had crumbled, but he'd started over with a small local firm. Ryan was rebuilding too, focusing on ethical tech investments. Their perfect facades had shattered, revealing something more human underneath. The detective returned this. Father held out my camera, said they don't need it as evidence anymore. I took it, feeling its familiar weight. Through this lens, I tried to expose truth, then twisted it, then finally found it in the wreckage of all our lies. I have something to show you, I said. In my new studio, Annie, but mine, I unveiled the prints I'd been working on. Simple family portraits, Mother's tired smile, Father's worried hands, Ryan's quiet strength as he rebuilt, Evan's humble determination. No manipulation, no agenda, just truth. It's called reconstruction, I explained, if you'll let me show it. They studied the images, seeing themselves through my lens. Not as the perfect family we'd pretended to be, or the monsters we'd become, but as something in between, something real. When's the opening? Ryan asked. You don't have to. We want to, Evan said. This time, we'll be there. Jake appeared in the doorway, guitar case in hand. Ready for rehearsal? I nodded, gathering my camera. My family watched, uncertain of their place in this new reality. Sunday dinner, Mother said suddenly. If you want, both of you. Jake and I exchanged glances. We'll think about it. Outside, spring sunlight caught the edge of my lens, creating prisms. Through it, I saw my family emerging from the studio, damaged, healing, trying. Not perfect, not ruined, just human. You okay? Jake asked as we walked to his gig. I thought of Grandma Rose, of Mother, of the legacy of revenge and control I'd almost continued. Of the difference between exposing truth and creating it. No, I admitted, but I'm getting there. I raised my camera one last time, capturing this moment, not for an exhibition or revenge, but for myself. The light, the shadows, the complex truth of family and forgiveness. The shutter clicked, and I let it tell its own story.
My name is Sheila, and I guess you could say I'm living the suburban dream. I've been married to my wonderful husband, Chris, for 4 years now, and boy, what a riot it's been. We met in college, both majoring in business. There was something about his smile and his easygoing nature that drew me in. We were inseparable from the start, spending late nights studying, giggling over inside jokes, and planning our future together. Fast forward a few years, and we got married, promising to be there for each other through thick and thin. The whole for better or for worse thing seemed like a piece of cake at the time. But little did I know that our journey was about to take a turn, with me being almost dead thanks to none other than my mother-in-law. Chris and his mom, Martha, had this tight bond, which was just too much in my book. Martha practically raised him solo after her divorce, and it seemed like she was dead set on keeping him under her wing after he had flown the nest. I'd heard tales about how she used to match outfits with him, and she'd always be there like a shadow while he used to play with his friends. Let me tell you about Martha's timetable for Chris. It was like she was the master architect of his life or something. She'd have this whole elaborate schedule mapped out for him from the moment he woke up to the moment he went to bed. Even when he headed off to college, the clinginess didn't exactly fade. She'd call him multiple times a day, checking on his schedule and even popping in for visits twice a week. Honestly, it left its mark on Chris. He was this amazing guy, but you could tell he carried the weight of all that on his shoulders. He doubted himself a lot, always wondering if he was doing the right thing or if he was living up to her expectations. She had this tendency to get a bit jealous of Chris's girlfriends, which was a bit on the weird side. I remember when Chris introduced me to her for the first time at dinner. I could practically feel her eyes scanning me from head to toe, assessing every detail. "Sheila, it is so lovely to finally meet you. Chris talks about you all the time." "Thank you, Martha. It's great to meet you too." "Oh, I'm sure it is. Chris has a way of, well, surprising us with his choices." "Yeah, he's full of surprises. So, Sheila, tell me, what do you do for a living?" "I work in marketing. It's pretty exciting. There's always something new happening." "Check this, Sheila. Chris used to date some characters, like Lily, this artsy chick, always lost in her own artsy universe. Not exactly the practical type." "Please, Mom, you're embarrassing me." "Seriously?" "Oh, totally. And then there was this musical wonder. Talented, but maybe a bit too free-spirited for my taste. You know, Sheila, no matter who comes into Chris's life, I'll always be the first woman he loves." "Come on, Mom, you got it. Mother-son bond, you know?" "Yep, gotcha." Even when I tried to have a conversation with her, it felt like I was navigating a minefield. I'd mention a movie I liked, and she'd actually mention that Chris didn't enjoy that genre much. I'd talk about a place that I wanted to visit, and she'd drop in and say that Chris had already been there with her. It's like she had this mission to prove she was the ultimate Chris expert, and I was just an amateur. She just came off as so insecure to me from the very first time we met. She had an opinion about everything. From how I should decorate our apartment, to what I should cook for dinner as per Chris's preferences. It felt like I was competing for Chris's attention with his own mother. Things took an even wilder turn when Martha's kitchen caught fire, turning the house into a disaster zone. She needed a place to stay during the renovations, and of course, we had to invite her. The day Martha arrived, she handed me a 14-page rulebook. Yes, you heard that right, a freaking rulebook. "Hey, Martha, I'm sorry about the fire at your place. Man, that must have been tough. You're welcome to stay here as long as you need. Let me grab those bags for you. Thanks, Sheila. The fire was a nightmare, shook things up. But before we all get settled, there's something I want to give you. Oh, all right. Check this out. It's my little creation, a guide to keeping peace around the house. A guide? Okay, that's interesting. You got it. It's just my way of keeping things on track while I'm in the picture. Well, what is with all these rules? You know, I've always believed in having some ground rules in a house. Back in the day, I had to keep things in check while handling Chris. We don't need a rule book to function as adults, do we? Oh, Sheila, I get it, but having a few ground rules can prevent unnecessary drama, you know? And breaking them might have some consequences. Consequences? Are we running a boot camp here? Stop complaining. Now let's tackle those bags. I'm curious to see where you've tucked me in. Once I showed Martha her room and got back to mine, I flipped through the pages, each one outlining absurd rules like vacuum the living room precisely at 8:30 a.m., serve dinner at 6:45 p.m., shop, and my personal favorite, wash the bathroom tiles with lemon-scented cleaner every other day. I was shocked at the list of rules. What kind of controlling behavior was this? When Chris got back from work, I showed him the rule book. Before going to bed, we both started laughing at it. It was like we stepped into this whole other universe where everything was super organized. Okay, this one takes the cake, arrange the spice jars in alphabetical order. Yes, I guess our spices are going for a degree in linguistics. And do not miss the Gourmet Tuesdays, where I apparently have to whip up a 5-course meal from scratch. Well, that is one way to turn our humble kitchen into a Michelin star restaurant. You know, honey, my mom means well, but she needs to realize that I have grown up now. This is our house, not hers. We have our own way of doing things. You're right. So promise me you will not take this rule book too seriously. It's just her way of showing that she cares, even if it's a bit eccentric. Deal. No alphabetized spices or gourmet extravaganzas in our future, I promise. The next morning I woke up and Chris was already ready for work. He kissed me goodbye. Martha's rule book was sitting on my bedside table. I checked the time, around 8 o'clock a.m., and realized that according to the rule book, I should be getting ready to vacuum the living room by 8:30 a.m. Yeah, right, I thought. I took a shower, got dressed, grabbed a granola bar, and left for work before Martha could catch me. I walked in after a tough day at the office, hoping to relax on the couch. But as soon as I stepped through the door, it was like walking into a storm. Chris and Martha were locked in this intense argument in the living room. Martha was all worked up. Chris, I'm really struggling to understand why Sheila can't seem to respect the rules I've set in this house. Did you notice that Sheila just left for work this morning without doing any of the chores? Mom, we've talked about this. This house is turning into chaos. It's about maintaining order. That's how I raised you. Raised him with rules that he's now grown out of. Look who is here. You think you know him better, huh? Because I distinctly remember him asking for pancakes every Sunday morning when he was a kid, Mom. Seriously, Sheila, who even are you? This is my son's house, and it belongs to me as much as it belongs to you. Excuse me, what? Chris, Mom, I need to come clean. This is Sheila's house. She owns it. What? How is that possible, Martha? When Chris and I got married, my parents gifted me this house as a first anniversary present. It's under my name. Chris, you never told your mom? I didn't want to complicate things, so I let you believe it was mine. I'm sorry, Mom. So after Chris did his dramatic storm off, I was left standing there, totally dumbfounded by what he'd just thrown into the conversation. My brain was doing some serious acrobatics trying to figure out why he'd go all Mission Impossible with a lie about our house. Chris had never, not once, lied to me before. He'd always been the sweetest, most genuine guy. I took a deep breath and headed to our bedroom, giving the door a gentle push. There he was, Chris, looking like he was drowning in guilt. "Hey, can we talk?" "Yeah, I guess we should. Look, I'm not mad or anything. I can't wrap my head around why you would lie about the house, of all things. You know we have always been open and honest with each other." "I know, honey. That's what's been eating me. I should have just told you the truth from the start." "Okay, so what's the deal?" "It's my mom. She has always been on my case, you know. Ever since I was a kid, she's had these expectations about who I should be and what I should achieve. It's like she wanted this perfect version of me." "And you thought lying about the house would what? Impress her?" "No, not impress. More like disappoint her. She's always been proud of her control over things, and I thought if she found out that you're the one who actually owns the house, it would shake things up. She would be disappointed in me for not being the son she wants me to be. Wait, hold on, Chris. You are your own person. You have always been kind, hardworking, and true to yourself, baby. You are the man I fell in love with. Why does she need to define your worth?" Chris's backstory with his toxic mother was hitting me hard. Growing up with that kind of negativity made him feel like he had to lie to his own mom. The whole thing was straight up unfair. Chris, the most chill and caring guy I knew, carried around this heavy baggage from his messed up family. He deserved better, a childhood that didn't leave him feeling like he had to lie or prove himself. What really irked me was how toxic Martha could be. It made sense why she had no friends and nowhere to go when her kitchen burnt down. I was mad. She was so mad that she had this hold over Chris, that she made him feel like he had to lie to keep the peace. I was mad that she was this toxic presence in our lives. It was like she was poisoning everything. The next day was seriously weird. I was getting ready for work, fully prepared for Martha to come at me with her usual chore checklist or some sarcastic comment like she always did. But surprise, she was radio silent. I headed to work feeling a mix of relief and suspicion, thinking, is this the calm before the storm or what? As soon as I stepped through our front door after work, I saw that my living room was a total mess. Furniture was moved around, and vases and plant pots from my beloved indoor garden were nowhere to be seen. "Martha, what have you done?" She emerged from around the corner. "Oh, Sheila, I just thought the room needed a bit of a change." "Change, Martha? This is our home. You can't just come in and rearrange everything without even asking." "Well, I thought it would be better this way, and those plants were taking up too much space. You know what, Martha? I'm just tired of your constant need to control everything. I invited you into my home, gave you a space here, and what do? You find new ways to make my life miserable. Oh, please, Sheila, spare me the drama. You are overreacting. They were just plants." Stepping into my bedroom was a bit of a shocker. My bed was against a new wall. The photo frames on the dresser seemed cramped, and my desk was in a spot that made zero sense. I couldn't really grasp why Martha thought she had the right to be a feng shui master. "Can we just live together without one of us trying to rearrange the whole universe?" I stormed into Martha's room, my frustration reaching its boiling point. Enough was enough, Martha. Seriously, what were you thinking? You had no right to go into my bedroom and rearrange things without asking. You're blowing this way out of proportion, Sheila. We need to talk. I've been trying to keep my cool, but I can't hold back anymore. You've been treating me like some sort of intruder in my own home, and it's not okay. I get that you have your rules and your idea of how things should be, but let me tell you something. being a mom doesn't give you a free pass to mess with our lives. Whoa! Where's all this coming from? It's been building up after months of your critiques and eye rolls. You think you're the guru of life or something, especially when it comes to Chris. But guess what? Your way isn't the only way. Believe it or not, I've been guiding him since his dad left, and I give you props for that, but that doesn't mean you're the boss of our lives. I've seen how your need for control is stressing Chris out. He's walking around like he's got a ton of bricks on his shoulders, worried that he's not living up to your expectations. I'm seeing it for what it is. I see it when Chris hesitates to speak his mind around you. I hear it when he tries to keep you happy at all costs. Chris is a grown man, and I'm not letting you yank his strings anymore. You just brought trouble upon yourself, Sheila, questioning me as a parent. You'll know soon. So after that showdown with Martha, I was emotionally drained and seriously wiped out. I told the whole drama to Chris later that night and found comfort in his arms. He was like my shield against the emotional storm. He apologized to me and told me that Martha was not a permanent member of the house and that she would be gone soon. Chris's "she'll be gone soon" comment started making sense, so I did not let it bother me much. But the next morning, while I was getting ready for work, Martha just walked up and apologized out of the blue. She said she'd try to relax and not meddle. Surprisingly, she stuck to it. Things were going pretty smoothly for a while. Martha seemed to be on a mission to be helpful, pitching in with chores and being all nice and cooperative. She even made dinner for Chris and me and we actually sat down like a normal family to eat. It was super weird, but kind of nice, to be honest, for a moment. Chris and I started thinking, maybe she is turning a corner. After that, in the span of around a week, everything took an unexpected turn. I came home one day after work, and Martha greeted me. She asked me how my day was and handed over some homemade protein bars. It seemed like a nice gesture at first, so I took one and had a bite. So I ended up gobbling down the entire thing. But within moments I could feel a weird lump forming in my throat, and my skin erupted in rashes. Panic set in. "Did Martha slip in some peanuts?" I called out for her. "You know I'm allergic to peanuts. What the heck did you put in those bars?" "Oh my gosh, Sheila, I forgot about your allergy. I didn't mean to, I swear," Martha replied. "Seriously, Martha?" "Oh, come on, Sheila, it must have slipped my mind, just like my rules slipped yours." "Oh my God, are you kidding me? I could die." I rushed to my room to get my EpiPen, and Martha followed. "Why did I put that EpiPen? I need it now." "Looking for something, Sheila?" "My EpiPen. You rearranged this room. Where did you keep it? This is not a game, Martha. My EpiPen is a matter of life and death." "Well, we'll just have to find it, won't we?" I could feel my body giving out, like I was running on fumes. My vision was all wonky, and the sense of doom settled in. I knew things were seriously messed up. As I was trying not to black out, I heard Chris's voice cutting through the haze. He was on the phone, talking like his life depended on it. An ambulance pulled up, paramedics were all business, doing their thing to get me stable. The ride to the hospital was blurry as heck, with sirens beeping and the whole shebang. It felt like I was drifting in and out of some weird dream, and then I finally rested my eyes. When I woke up in the hospital, Chris was there, looking worn out but relieved. I was done. Done with her manipulation, her toxicity, and her complete disregard for anyone's well-being but her own. As soon as I was discharged, I had a serious heart-to-heart with Chris. He knew it was time to take a stand too. He'd seen firsthand the damage his mother's actions could cause, and he was ready to set things right. In a couple of days, I was discharged from the hospital, and Chris and I got home. "Mom, we need to talk. I don't know what Sheila told you, but it was all a mistake. Cut it out." "You know what, Mom? I used to think I had a mother. someone who cared, someone who wanted the best for her family. But I was dead wrong. I didn't know I had a monster for a mom. Someone who's willing to manipulate just to satisfy her own twisted need for control. No, honey, I need to get this out. Mom, you've torn this family apart with your toxic behavior. You've taken every opportunity to belittle and demean Sheila, someone who's done nothing but support and care for all of us. What did she get in return? Neglect and allergies triggered because you forgot. It's sickening. You nearly killed Sheila. Let that sink in. You almost killed your son's wife. Didn't you even think about me once? Chris, please, I never meant for things to go this far. I know I've made mistakes, and I'm so sorry for what happened to Sheila. Mom, listen carefully. You have two choices. You can leave on your own terms, or I'll make sure you're out of here. You can spend your days in whatever hole you want until your house is renovated. I don't care if you stay in a motel or wherever, but you won't do it here. This is where it ends, Mom. Our relationship, whatever was left of it, ends right here. I don't have a mother anymore, not in the way that matters. Honestly, I couldn't help but feel a kind of twisted satisfaction when Chris showed his mom the door. She loved him so much that it must have stung like crazy to be rejected by her own son. She honestly deserved it after the protein bar situation. We've lost touch with Martha completely. No calls, no texts, no sign of where she went. It's like she vanished into thin air. And as much as I'd hoped for her to grow and find her way, I can't help but wonder where she's ended up. Despite all the drama, she's still his mom, and that worry for her is there. Chris ran into a couple of construction guys working on her house, and they let him know that she drops in sometimes to see if things are in check. So I guess she is okay. Our home is no longer a battleground, and who knows if we will get in touch with her again. We are just trying to live in the moment.
My phone buzzed 3 times in rapid succession. 3 messages from my mother, each more demanding than the last. I stared at the screen, my fingers hovering over the keypad as nausea crept up my throat. Cancel your engagement party. Sophie's promotion celebration is that weekend. Family comes first, Aria. The irony of her last statement made me want to hurl my phone across the room. Instead, I gripped it tighter, watching my knuckles turn white. 3 weeks of meticulous planning, dozens of confirmed guests, and non-refundable deposits. All meant nothing compared to Sophie's impromptu celebration. Everything okay? Jack's warm hand settled on my shoulder. I hadn't heard him come into the kitchen. My sister got promoted. The words tasted bitter. Mother wants us to cancel our engagement party. What? That's ridiculous. We've been planning this for months. I showed him the messages. His jaw tightened, the only sign that he was as angry as I was. Jack had learned early in our relationship to measure his words when it came to my family. Your mother does realize we've already paid for everything. Oh, she knows. She just doesn't care. I scrolled through the previous messages from the past week. Look at this. She's been hinting at it. Sophie has big news coming. We might need to be flexible with dates. I should have seen this coming. The kitchen counter was covered with sample place cards I'd been organising, each one handwritten in careful calligraphy, another skill Sophie had always dismissed as quaint and old-fashioned. My phone buzzed again. Call me immediately. This isn't a request. Don't, Jack said quietly. Not while you're upset. I'm always upset when it comes to them. I pushed away from the counter, pacing the kitchen. You know what the worst part is? Sophie probably didn't even ask for this. Mother just decided, like she always does. The memories flooded back. My high school graduation rescheduled because of Sophie's dance recital. My college acceptance celebration combined with Sophie's junior prom send-off. My art show opening missed because Sophie had a minor cold. We're not cancelling, Jack said firmly. This is our engagement party, not a casual dinner plan. My phone started ringing. Mother's face filled the screen. A photo from happier times that I kept meaning to change. I declined the call. She'll just keep calling. Let her. Jack gathered the place cards into a neat stack. What do you want to do? The question caught me off guard. In my family, what I wanted had always been secondary, tertiary even, after Mother's wishes and Sophie's needs. Another text. Your silence is childish and disappointing. Sophie worked hard for this promotion. My fingers moved before I could stop them. So did I, for my engagement party. The response was immediate. Don't make this about you. I laughed, a harsh, broken sound that made Jack look up sharply. When has it ever been about me? Aria. Jack's voice held a warning note. He knew my tells, knew when I was about to do something rash. I'm done. I straightened my spine, feeling something shift inside me. I'm done being the reasonable one, the understanding one, the one who always gives in. My phone buzzed again, this time with a message from Sophie. Mum's really upset. Can't you just move your party? It's not that big a deal. Not that big a deal. Like my engagement was just an inconvenient scheduling conflict. We're keeping our date, I said, my voice steady. And I'm going to do something I should have done years ago. What's that? Jack asked, though his expression suggested he already knew. I'm going to make them understand exactly how it feels to be treated like an afterthought. I picked up my phone, opened my contact list, and began deleting numbers, starting now. The screen lit up with another incoming call from Mother. This time, I didn't just decline it, I blocked her number. The family photo album sat heavy in my lap, its leather cover cracked with age. I hadn't opened it in years, but blocking Mother's number had unleashed a flood of memories I couldn't ignore. I found Sophie's promotion announcement, Jack said, holding up his phone. Vice President of Marketing at 24, that's impressive. Let me guess. Mother already shared it everywhere. 300 likes in 2 hours. I flipped through the album, stopping at my college graduation photo. In it, Sophie stood front and center, her bright red dress drawing every eye. I was off to the side in my cap and gown, half cropped out of the frame. Did I ever tell you about my first art show? I traced the edge of another photo, Sophie's Sweet 16. It was the same night as Sophie's regional dance competition. Mother told me it was selfish to expect the family to choose between us. Did anyone come? Grandma Marie! She sat there for 3 hours, bought 2 pieces. I closed the album. Mother said I was trying to steal attention from Sophie's big night. My phone lit up with a text from Lily. Your mum's calling everyone. She's saying you're having a breakdown. What's happening? Before I could respond, another message appeared. Sophie just posted about her promotion party, same date as your engagement celebration? That can't be coincidence. The doorbell rang, making us both jump. Through the front window, I spotted my father's silver Mercedes. I can tell him you're not here, Jack offered. No, I need to handle this. Father stood on our porch, looking uncomfortable in his tailored suit. He always dressed like he was heading to a board meeting, even on weekends. Your mother's worried, he said, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. She says you're not answering her calls. I'm sure she is worried. I kept my voice level, worried that for once she can't control the situation. Aria. He used his warning tone, the one that used to make me shrink into myself. This isn't like you. Sophie worked hard for this promotion. And I worked hard planning my engagement party. 3 weeks of preparation, thousands in deposits. Money isn't the issue. He waved his hand dismissively. We'll cover any costs. That's not the point, and you know it. The point is family unity. Your mother has already announced Sophie's celebration. Of course she has. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Did she mention she demanded I cancel my engagement party first? Or did she just make it look like I'm the unreasonable one? Father shifted his weight, avoiding my eyes. There's no need for drama. We can celebrate your engagement another time. Like you celebrated my art show, or my graduation, or every other milestone that got pushed aside for Sophie. That's not fair. No, what's not fair is you standing there once again, telling me to sacrifice my happiness for Sophie's convenience. Jack moved closer, his presence steady behind me. Father's eyes flickered between us. Your mother says Jack's been influencing you, turning you against the family. Jack's the only one who's ever put me first. The words came out sharp, cutting. Maybe that's why you all hate him so much. Father's face hardened. We don't hate. Save it. I pulled out my phone, opened Sophie's social media post about her promotion party. Look at the comments. Mother's already told everyone I'm having a breakdown, hasn't she? That I'm being difficult and selfish? His silence was answer enough. Get out. My voice was quiet but firm. Tell Mother her manipulation tactics won't work this time. The engagement party stays as planned. You'll regret this attitude, Arya. Family is all we have in the end. No, Father. Family is supposed to have our backs, not stab us in them. After he left, Jack held me while I shook, not with tears but with rage. My phone buzzed again. A message from Sophie. You're embarrassing yourself. Just reschedule. You're making Mom sick with worry. I opened my laptop and began typing an email to our entire extended family. It was time they heard my side of the story, starting with a simple truth. For years, I've stayed silent about the systematic emotional abuse in our family. That silence ends today. I hit send before I could second-guess myself. The war mother started. I was going to finish it. The responses started flooding in within hours of my email. Aunt Carol called me brave. Uncle Steve said I was attention-seeking. Cousin Nina sent a private message about similar experiences. But it was Lily's text that made my hands shake. Check your mother's latest email thread now. I found it buried in my spam folder. A group message to the entire family with the subject line, concerning Arya's mental state. Attached were carefully selected photos spanning years, each one doctored to paint a narrative. Me looking sullen at Sophie's graduation while everyone else smiled. Me standing apart at family gatherings. All carefully curated evidence of my supposed instability. She's been planning this, I whispered, scrolling through the thread. These photos go back years. Jack leaned over my shoulder reading. She's gaslighting the entire family. Look at the timestamps. She sent this minutes after my email. She was prepared for me to fight back. My phone rang, Sophie's number. Against my better judgment, I answered. What the hell are you doing? Her voice crackled with rage. Do you know what you've started? Funny, I was about to ask you the same thing. Did you help Mother collect those photos? A pause. Too long to be innocent. You're paranoid. Am I? Because someone had to send her those pictures of me at your college graduation. The ones where I look unstable because I had food poisoning. You're twisting everything. Like Mother twisted the truth about my art show? Tell me, Sophie, did you really have a dance competition that night? Or did Mother just tell everyone that? Another pause, heavier this time. What are you talking about? Check your old competition schedule. I did. There was no regional competition that weekend. Mother lied to everyone, including you. The silence stretched. I heard papers rustling on her end. That's not possible. Isn't it? She's been playing us against each other our whole lives, Sophie. I'm just the first one to say it out loud. A knock at the door interrupted us. Through the window, I saw Grandma Marie's familiar silhouette. I have to go, I told Sophie, but while you're fact-checking, look up when your company actually announced vice president promotions, because according to their website, they happened 2 months ago. I ended the call and opened the door. Grandma Marie stood there, clutching her ancient leather handbag and looking grimmer than I'd ever seen her. Your mother called me, she said, stepping inside. Told me to talk sense into you. But first, show me these emails everyone's talking about. I handed her my laptop. She read in silence, her expression darkening with each paragraph. Your mother's response, she finally said, reminds me of something your grandfather used to do. He'd rewrite history so convincingly, sometimes I'd doubt my own memories. Did you ever confront him? No. She closed the laptop. And I've regretted it every day since. But you should know your mother's latest email blast included something she thought would destroy you. My stomach clenched. What? Financial records, suggesting you've been stealing from the family business. The room tilted. I grabbed the counter for support. That's impossible. I've never even had access. Exactly. Grandma Marie's eyes glittered. And I have proof. I've kept every document since your grandfather made me company treasurer 30 years ago, including the real records that show who's been skimming money. Understanding dawned. Sophie, and your mother, covering for her. They've been doctoring books for years. She patted her handbag. I brought copies. I've been waiting for someone brave enough to stand up to them. My phone buzzed. Another email from Mother. Final warning. Retract your accusations, or tomorrow everyone learns what you've really been doing. I looked at Grandma Marie, saw the steel in her eyes matching my own resolve. Send me those records, I said. It's time to show Mother what real evidence looks like. Be careful, dear. Grandma Marie squeezed my hand. The most dangerous moment is when someone like your mother realizes they're losing control. I thought of all the years of manipulation, the carefully constructed lies, the orchestrated family drama. Good, I said. Let her feel what it's like to be powerless for once. As I drafted my response, attaching the real financial records, I felt something shift inside me. The last traces of doubt burning away in the face of cold, hard truth. The financial records spread across my kitchen table like a roadmap of betrayal. Each spreadsheet told its own story. Money siphoned from company accounts, fabricated expenses, all carefully hidden beneath layers of creative accounting. Sophie's signature appeared on document after document, alongside Mother's authorizing initials. My phone hadn't stopped buzzing since I'd forwarded everything to the family board members. Your sister's outside, Jack said, peeking through the curtains. She looks different. I joined him at the window. Sophie stood by her car, makeup-free, wearing old jeans instead of her usual designer clothes. She looked younger, almost vulnerable. Don't let her manipulate you, Jack warned. I know their tricks now. I opened the door before she could knock. Here to threaten me again. Sophie stepped inside, her movements uncertain. I came to ask why. Why what? Why did I expose the truth? Why did I stop letting Mother puppet master our lives? Or why did you steal from our family's company? She flinched. I didn't. It wasn't stealing. Mother said it was my rightful share, that Father would never properly compensate me otherwise. And you believed her? Like you believed her when she said I demanded to have my promotion party on your engagement date? Sophie's voice cracked. I never asked for that. I didn't even know about it until she announced it. I stayed silent, watching her unravel. The company's launching an audit, she continued. I'll lose my job, my reputation, everything I've worked for, everything you stole for. I didn't know! She slammed her hand on the counter. Mother handled all the paperwork. She said it was standard practice that everyone did it. I just signed what she gave me. Jack moved closer to me. Why are you really here, Sophie? She pulled out her phone, hands shaking. Because of this. She played a voicemail from Mother. Fix this mess with your sister immediately, or I'll make sure everyone knows exactly whose idea the embezzlement was. I have documents with only your signature, darling. Who do you think they'll believe? The familiar cold calculation in Mother's voice made my skin crawl. She's turning on you, I said. She's turning on everyone. Sophie's laugh was hollow. I checked the competition dates like you said. There was never any conflict with your art show, or your graduation, or anything else. It was all her, playing us against each other, and I was too stupid to see it. We both were. The board's meeting tomorrow. Sophie wrapped her arms around herself. Mother's presenting her evidence, all pointing to me acting alone. Father's already distancing himself. I have nowhere else to go. I studied my sister, really looked at her for the first time in years. Behind the perfect facade Mother had crafted, I saw someone as trapped as I'd been. Show me everything, I said. Every document, every email, every conversation with Mother about the company finances. Why would you help me? After everything? Because destroying you was Mother's plan, not mine. I grabbed my laptop, and I'm done letting her win. Jack touched my shoulder. Are you sure about this? Mother wanted us to tear each other apart. Instead, We're going to tear down her whole system. I turned to Sophie. But first, you need to tell me the truth. All of it. Sophie nodded, tears spilling. There's something else you should know. About your engagement party venue? Mother didn't just try to force you to cancel. She called them pretending to be you. They're giving your deposit to her tomorrow unless you confirm in person. My fingers curled into fists. When? 9 a.m. She's meeting them before the board meeting. I opened my email, began typing. Perfect, because at 9:15 the board will receive proof of every manipulation, every lie, every scheme she's ever pulled, including her latest attempt at fraud. They'll destroy her, Sophie whispered. No. I hit send on the email to my lawyer. She destroyed herself. We're just going to make sure everyone sees it. Sophie's phone buzzed. Another message from Mother. She showed it to me. Don't disappoint me like your sister did. I deleted the message. Ready to disappoint her together? For the first time in years, my sister's smile matched mine. Genuine, determined, and just a little bit dangerous. Let's end this, she said. The country club's dining room fell silent as I walked in, whispers following in my wake. Mother sat at her usual corner table, holding court with her social circle. Her eyes met mine, and for a moment, I saw genuine surprise crack through her perfect mask. Darling, she called out, voice honey-sweet, I didn't expect to see you here. Clearly. I approached their table, noting how her friends shifted uncomfortably. Is that why you felt safe spreading rumours about Jack's gambling addiction? One of her friends, Mrs. Henderson, choked on her mimosa. I'm merely concerned, Mother said smoothly, as any mother would be given the circumstances. What circumstances? The ones you fabricated? Or the ones you paid people to believe? Aria, her warning tone, the one that used to make me shrink. You're making a scene. No, Mother. You made the scene when you told the entire club that Jack's family is involved in money laundering. That's libel, by the way. His law firm is very interested in discussing it. The colour drained from her face. You wouldn't dare. Check your email. Their cease and desist letter arrived an hour ago. Mrs. Henderson and the others began gathering their purses, murmuring excuses. Mother's fingers tightened around her water glass. Why are you doing this? Because you left me no choice. Did you really think I wouldn't find out about you impersonating me to cancel my venue booking? A flash of panic crossed her features, quickly masked. I don't know what you're talking about. The venue manager recorded the call, Mother, standard practice for contract changes. Would you like to hear your performance? She stood abruptly. We should discuss this privately. Like how you privately told Aunt Sarah that Jack got me pregnant to trap me into marriage. Or how you privately suggested to Uncle Robert that my art gallery is a front for tax evasion. Everything I've done has been to protect you. From what? Happiness? Independence? The ability to exist without your control? You're hysterical. She reached for my arm. This is exactly why... I stepped back. Touch me and I'll add assault to the lawsuit. Her mask cracked completely. You ungrateful little... Mother! Sophie's voice cut through the tension. She stood in the doorway holding a manila envelope. The board members are asking for you. Something about unauthorized transfers from the company accounts. Mother's face went from rage to calculation in an instant. Sophie, darling, perfect timing. Tell them. I already told them everything. Sophie moved to stand beside me, including how you forged my signature on half those documents. I made you! Mother's voice rose, drawing stares from nearby tables. Everything you are, everything you have, is built on lies, I finished, but that stops today. You think anyone will believe you over me? I've spent years building our family's reputation, while destroying ours. Sophie opened the envelope, spreading photos across the table. Grandma Marie kept everything, Mother. Every doctored photo, every manipulated document, every piece of evidence showing how you pitted us against each other. Mother's hands shook as she looked at the photos. Marie wouldn't... Already did, I said. The board has copies. So does Father. Daniel would never... He signed the audit approval this morning. Sophie's voice cracked. It's over, Mother. Security appeared at the dining room entrance, summoned by whom I couldn't tell. Mother saw them too, her face hardening into something unrecognizable. You'll regret this, she hissed. Both of you. When everything falls apart, don't come crawling back. Mrs. Harrison? One of the security guards approached. We need you to come with us. The board members are waiting. I watched them escort her out, her head held high even in defeat. The dining room erupted in whispers as soon as she was gone. Sophie gripped my hand. Did we just... Yeah, I squeezed back. We did. What happens now? My phone buzzed. A message from Jack. Venue secured. They're pressing charges for fraud. Now, I said. We plan an engagement party. A real one, without any manipulation or control. Think she'll retaliate? I looked at the scattered photos on the table, years of evidence of Mother's machinations. Probably, but this time we're ready for her. Sophie picked up one of the photos, us as children, before Mother's games tore us apart. We should have done this years ago. We weren't strong enough then. I gathered the evidence back into the envelope, but we are now. The board meeting ended in chaos. Through the glass walls of the conference room, I watched Mother storm out, leaving scattered papers in her wake. Father followed, his face ashen, while Sophie sat frozen in her chair, staring at nothing. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Notifications from every social platform, all sharing Mother's latest post. With heavy hearts, we must address the disturbing allegations made by our daughter Aria, who has struggled with reality since childhood. The attached photos showed me at my worst moments. Carefully curated evidence of a narrative she'd been building for years. Me looking unstable at family events, medical records from my teenage anxiety attacks, therapy sessions she'd forced me into after Sophie's dance recitals overshadowed my art shows. She's thorough, Lily said, scrolling through the comments. She's painting you as mentally unstable, claiming everything you've revealed is a delusion. The financial records. She's saying you fabricated them, that your obsession with undermining Sophie's success has reached dangerous levels. Lily hesitated. Half the family's already sharing it. My hands shook as I opened another notification. A message from the venue. Given recent concerning developments, we must terminate our contract immediately. Jack burst through the boardroom doors. Your mother's lawyers are filing a cease and desist. They're claiming defamation, threatening criminal charges for the company financial records. But they're real. They're saying you hacked the system, planted false evidence. He ran a hand through his hair. They've frozen Grandma Marie's access to the archives. Without her original documents, Sophie finally moved, her voice hollow. Mother's claiming I had a breakdown, that you manipulated me into making false accusations against her. She's already contacted my company's HR department. The room spun. Everything we'd gathered, every piece of evidence, every careful plan, Mother had anticipated it all, laid her trap, and waited for us to walk right into it. My phone buzzed again. A text from Father. Your mother is willing to forgive this episode if you agree to intensive treatment. Don't force us to take legal action. She's going to win, I whispered. She always wins. No. Jack grabbed my shoulders. We can fight this. Your grandmother is being evaluated for cognitive decline according to Mother's latest update. Lily showed us the post. She's suggesting Marie's memory can't be trusted. The conference room door opened. Nina slipped in, looking pale. Aunt Megan's at the hospital with Grandma Marie. She collapsed after the lawyers left. What? Sophie stood so fast her chair toppled. That's impossible. She was fine this morning. Mother's post just went live, Lily interrupted. Devastated by the strain of her granddaughter's accusations, beloved family matriarch Marie Harrison suffered a stress-induced cardiac event. My legs gave out. Jack caught me before I hit the floor. She's using Grandma Marie's condition to prove how destructive I am. The realization felt like acid in my throat. She's turning my own revenge into proof of my instability. Sophie's phone chimed. The company's suspending me pending investigation. Mother's lawyers submitted evidence that I was coerced into making false allegations. We have to retract everything, Nina said quietly, before she destroys you both completely. If we do that, she wins. But my voice lacked conviction. She already has. Sophie's laugh was bitter. She planned for this, Arya. Every move we made, she was 10 steps ahead. My engagement party invitations sat on the conference table, elegant and mocking. All I'd wanted was one day that was mine, one moment without Mother's manipulation. Instead, I'd given her exactly what she needed to prove her point. "What do we do now?" Sophie asked. Before I could answer, every phone in the room buzzed simultaneously. A group message from Mother. "Your father and I are deeply concerned about this destructive behavior. We've arranged for immediate intervention. The facility comes highly recommended." Attached was a brochure for a private mental health hospital. "She's going to have me committed." The words felt distant, unreal. "She's going to use everything I've done as proof that I'm unstable." Jack pulled me close. "I won't let that happen. You might not have a choice." I stared at the invitation, at all our ruined plans. "She's won, hasn't she? She's finally won completely." Sophie touched my arm. Unless what? Unless we give her exactly what she wants. Let her think she's won." Sophie's eyes held a dangerous glint. "And then we show her what real manipulation looks like." I looked at my sister, really looked at her, and saw Mother's daughter. But this time, that might be exactly what we needed. The hospital corridor stretched endlessly, antiseptic and cold. I walked between two orderlies, playing the role Mother had written for me. The unstable daughter, finally accepting help. Behind us, Mother's heels clicked against the linoleum, a victory march. "You're doing the right thing, darling," she said, her voice dripping concern. "The doctors here will help you work through these delusions." I kept my head down, shoulders hunched, exactly how she expected me to look. Broken, defeated. The admitting room was small, windowless. A doctor sat behind the desk, reviewing the thick file Mother had provided. All those carefully curated incidents, all those manipulated moments, bound together to tell her version of my life. "Just sign here." Mother pushed the admission papers forward. "We'll take care of everything else." My hand trembled as I reached for the pen. Not from fear, but anticipation. "Before I sign, Arya," her warning tone, "don't make this difficult. I want to apologize." I looked up, met her eyes. "You were right. About everything." Surprise flickered across her face, quickly replaced by satisfaction. "Of course I was, darling. I've only ever wanted what's best. Which is why I recorded everything." The pen clattered to the floor. Mother's mask slipped just for a moment. "What?" "Check your phone, Mother. Sophie's been live streaming since we entered the hospital." She grabbed her phone, fingers shaking as she opened the notification. There was Sophie standing in the hospital lobby, broadcasting to hundreds of viewers. "My mother's attempt to institutionalize my sister for exposing her crimes." Sophie's voice came through clearly. "The same tactics she used to silence Grandma Marie. Turn that off!" Mother lunged for her phone, but the damage was done. Comments flooded the stream, shares multiplying by the second. The doctor stood. "Mrs. Harrison, these allegations are supported by evidence," Jack said, stepping into the room with two police officers, including Grandma Marie's original financial records, which she had digitally notarized years ago, anticipating exactly this situation. Mother's face contorted. "You ungrateful." "The board members are watching the stream," I cut in, "along with HR, the family lawyers, and every social contact you've cultivated over the years. They're all seeing exactly who you are. No one will believe. They already do." I pulled out my phone, showed her the incoming messages. Support, apologies, revelations of their own experiences with her manipulation. "You taught me well, Mother. About keeping evidence, about playing the long game, about waiting for the perfect moment to strike." Her hand shot out, nails raking my cheek. The officers moved instantly, restraining her. "You're nothing without me," she screamed. "I made you both. Everything you are is in spite of you, not because of you." Sophie appeared in the doorway, phone still broadcasting. "It's over, Mother. The board's called an emergency meeting. Father's already agreed to testify about the financial fraud." Mother's struggles ceased. She straightened, smoothed her hair, tried to reclaim her dignity. "You've destroyed this family." "No." I stood taller, letting her see the strength she'd tried to break. "You did that years ago. We're just finally breaking free." The officers began reading her rights. Mother stared at me, really looked at me, perhaps for the first time in years. "You think you've won?" Her laugh was brittle. "You're more like me than you know. This revenge, this manipulation, I taught you everything. You taught me how to survive you." I picked up the admission papers, tore them in half. "But I taught myself how to live without you." They led her away, her threats echoing down the corridor. Sophie ended the live stream, hands shaking. "Did we just—" "Yeah." I touched my bleeding cheek. "We did." Jack wrapped an arm around me. "The venue called. They want to reinstate the contract for the engagement party." I looked at the torn papers, at the doorway where Mother had finally faced the consequences of her actions, at Sophie who'd chosen truth over manipulation. "No," I said. "I don't want to celebrate there. Too many echoes of her influence." "Then where?" I smiled, feeling lighter than I had in years. "Somewhere new. Somewhere she's never been. Somewhere we can start fresh." Sophie took my hand. "Together? Together." I squeezed back. But this time, on our terms. Through the hospital windows, sunlight broke through the clouds, a new day without Mother's shadow looming over us. Finally, beautifully, free. Grandma Marie's garden bloomed with late summer flowers as I helped her into her favourite chair. The fraud investigation had taken its toll, but her eyes remained sharp as ever. "Your mother's sentencing is tomorrow," she said, adjusting her shawl. "I know." I deadheaded a wilting rose. "Father asked me to speak on her behalf. Will you?" The rose petals scattered in the breeze. "No." Sophie appeared with the tea tray, setting it carefully on the garden table. She'd moved in with Grandma Marie after everything, helping manage the company's restructuring while building her own consulting firm. "The board approved the new transparency measures," she said, pouring tea. "Everything Mother touched is being audited." "And the family?" Grandma Marie asked. I touched the fading scar on my cheek. Half of them still think I destroyed a perfect family. The other half wish they'd spoken up sooner about their own experiences with Mother. "Perfect isn't the same as healthy." Grandma Marie took her tea. "I learned that too late with your grandfather." "Is that why you kept all the evidence?" Sophie asked. "I kept it because truth has a way of demanding to be heard." She pulled an envelope from her shawl. Speaking of which, inside was a photograph I'd never seen. Mother as a young woman, standing in this same garden, looking haunted and small while Grandfather loomed behind her. "She was like you once," Grandma Marie said softly, "before she decided control was safer than freedom." The revelation settled like lead in my stomach. "I'm nothing like her." "No?" Grandma Marie's gaze was gentle but firm. "You orchestrated her downfall with the same precision she used to orchestrate your life. The difference is your choice of what to do with that power." My phone buzzed. A message from Jack about final details for our small wedding next week. No grand engagement party, no social media announcements, no carefully curated guest list. Just truth, simply told. "I found more of Mother's journals," Sophie said quietly. "From when we were kids. Her voice cracked. She had everything planned, every competition, every achievement, every spontaneous moment. Our whole lives were her carefully staged production. But she didn't plan for this," I gestured between us choosing each other over her games. "No," Sophie smiled. "That was all us. Grandma Marie touched the photograph. Your mother will have a lot of time to think about her choices now. The question is, what will you do with your freedom? I looked at my sister, at the garden where we'd once played before Mother's manipulation drove us apart, at the empty space where control had masqueraded as love for so long. I'm going to paint again, I said. Open my own gallery. With questionable accounting practices, Sophie teased. With complete transparency. I squeezed her hand. No more shadows, no more secrets. Speaking of secrets, Grandma Marie pulled out another envelope. There's something you should know about your grandfather's estate. But before she could continue, Father appeared at the garden gate. He looked older, greyer, but somehow lighter too. The prosecutors offered her a deal, he said without preamble. If she pleads guilty, they'll recommend a lighter sentence. Will she take it? Sophie asked. Only if you both agree to weekly family counselling sessions with her. The old familiar pressure descended, the weight of Mother's expectations, the obligation to maintain family harmony at any cost. But this time it felt different. No, I said, and Sophie nodded in agreement. Father didn't look surprised. She said you'd say that, said it proves how much like her you've become. Maybe she's right. I stood, facing him fully. Maybe I learned more from her than she intended, but I also learned what not to become. He nodded slowly, turned to leave, then paused. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. For not seeing it sooner. For not being stronger. We all have to choose our own way to be strong, Grandma Marie said, holding up the photograph. Some of us just take longer to figure out how. I watched Father leave, thinking about choices and consequences, about the fine line between justice and vengeance, about Mother sitting in her cell, probably still plotting, still trying to control the narrative. But her narrative didn't matter anymore. We were writing our own stories now. So, Sophie picked up her tea, about that gallery opening. Yes, I smiled, feeling the last weights of Mother's influence fall away. Let's talk about creating something new,